Good morning. It's June 14th, 2016. I will call the Wright County Board meeting to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the minutes of June 7th.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve minutes from last week.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner DeLyden. Any further discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. The agenda. Any amendments to the agenda today?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner DeLyden. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I just did want to have a little discussion thing about the wild parsnip.
Okay, items for consideration.
Okay.
C, wild parsnip.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I should have.
Mr. Chair, I'll amend my motion
Okay.
for the agenda to include the item for consideration, wild parsnip C.
Fine with the seconder?
Oh, I guess.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. The consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to have item F, after treasurer's claim, pulled for discussion.
Okay.
With that, I will approve the consent.
Anybody else got anything else? Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with item F pulled for consideration.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Burrell. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Motion carries unanimous. Mike, item
Yes.
F.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item F, that's the approve the claims. On page 25, Kennedy and Graven, just want to make sure that is that part of the Highway Public Works building?
Commissioners, that is for the highway bond that we had issued before. It was something missed by the financial advisors. So we're paying Kennedy and Graven for the bond counsel on the 2016 A bonds.
Mr. Chair, good. Bob, is it true that most of the times when you do these, that's part of the underwriting cost is included in that, where this is separate, that's kind of unconventional? Because most of the times I see these within what you do in the bond as
Right.
underwriting.
Commissioners, we've been with Ellers for a long time. They always pay these bills, and then we just pay Ellers. Springstead does it a little bit different. We pay Springstead for their advisors, and then we pay the bond raters and the bond counsels separately.
So it's not unconventional, it's just different.
It just, yeah, just different.
Just so to be clear then, when they quoted us a price to do it, and Ellers also quoted us a price, Ellers would have charged this on top of it, we would have just paid it to them.
Right.
Okay. Just so we know, so we were dealing with apples and apples.
Commissioners, Springstead and Ellers both bid just the financial advisor pieces of it.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fair enough then, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the claim?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner DeLyden. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Do we have a new employee that we need to recognize, or?
Well, it's not on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thanks, Bob. And it looks like, Bob, you didn't have an item on here today then. Right.
Hey, we don't have to worry about child labor laws either with.
No, she's in management.
In management, oh, okay, good.
Virgil Hawkins, Highway Engineer, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Swatsky and Board of Commissioners. I have two items to bring before you this morning for consideration. The first one is to approve Transportation Committee of the Whole minutes from May 24th and act on recommendations. The minutes and the original attachments are included in your packets. I'll just go through a brief summary. There were 2 items discussed at this Transportation Committee meeting. One was to review the road tour that we had following our 5-year hearing. And there was discussion about the projects on the 5-year hearing and the tour. And the recommendation, it was a consensus of the committee that I bring the 5-year plan to the county board for approval after changes and additions are made to the plan as suggested at today's meeting and documented in the meeting minutes. And I do have the revised plans here that I'll hand out.
Yep.
Thank you.
For Joe.
Yep. I didn't even notice that. Skip down to the narrative.
And some of the changes that were made at the meeting, we slotted in the Highway 60 project in Montrose for year 2018 and included a footnote about a possible bypass of Highway 25 in our 6 to 20-year plan is included. Those were the main changes. I guess with that, I just be open to any questions or comments.
I was on, was it County Road? No. The one between Maple Lake and Hastings.
8.
8. So this County Road 8. I was on there yesterday. I see they were doing that work.
Microsurface.
Yeah.
That turned out nice. I drove it this morning.
Yeah, it looks like they were doing something over by that Hastings truck stop too, where the township had some.
I saw the
concerns.
township did some curb work there.
Yeah.
They did some bituminous curb along there.
Did that get done already yesterday, Virgil, or are they still working at County 8?
The seal coat on 8 got completed last night. They got done about 7 o'clock
Oh.
at night.
Did a fast job.
Mr. Chair.
Eat this
Mr.
one.
Burrell.
Virgil, I had a couple things. Up in Cokato, I could have swore that I saw County Road 3 on one of the earlier plans going down for next year, and now
Yes.
it's 2018. Was that changed, or was I imagining things?
Let's see.
I thought it was the same year as County Road 6 was getting done in 9.
No, it's 2018.
It is 2018,
Uh-huh.
okay. Then my other question, because I see number 4 on there also up by Cokato.
Yes.
That road, I mean, it's like, it would be nice to drive if you had a little sports car and stuff with all the curves. Is there, I mean, it would be a huge project, but is there any way of, have we looked into straightening out some of the curves? I mean, it's,
As an engineer, I'd love to do that, Commissioner Burrell, but it costs money
It's
that,
Well, right away.
right
I know,
away, and
that's
there's, to
my
build it
thought.
to standards would be a lot safer.
Yeah.
But granted, that's, without a gas tax increase or some increase in funding, it's highways like that we're preserving instead of reconstructing.
Yeah, that's just, I understand that. I know it would be a lot of right of way to buy, but I don't know. I know I avoid it when I'm.
Yeah.
Well, because, there's curves, so there must be something that's curving around. Usually
Oh,
you've got
driveways.
water and,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it goes around the lake,
well, yeah, you
and then
can't
there's some
straighten that
streams
out.
in there that come down too, but, and then it's just, yeah, you'd be in somebody's yard almost any time you change the.
Well, yeah, when we reconstruct a road to meet standards, those curves would be brought to standard, like on Highway 12 that's getting finished this year, it's a reconstruct. There were some curves there, horizontal and vertical curves that we changed, and cost right away, and then designing it to standards. But it costs over $1 million a mile to do that versus
Yep.
the pavement preservation is about $200,000 a mile.
And then I said 2, but I'll just throw one more out there.
Well, back to that one.
Okay, go ahead.
I can sell you a sports car if that would make it more enjoyable for you.
It would be fun going through there with the Corvette, you know, so.
Mr. Chair,
You're not
Virgil, there
gonna-
can't be that many cars per day on that road either, compared to,
Correct. That's one of our highways that, compared to many of the highways in the middle to eastern part of the county, is lower ADT.
But that's because everybody avoids it.
well,
Okay, then I want to do one more. Then on County Road 3, it goes up to 35 right now.
Yes.
Is there a reason that you're not going all the way to 55 like with County Road 6?
Yes, it's called money. Again,
Otter pony up.
Yeah, that's it.
Otherwise, that section though, you feel is not quite as
That-
bad a shape, or?
correct, and that one's been patched by maintenance, so that's in better shape than the other. From 35 south to Highway 12, we did get federal dollars to help pay for that. So we got $1.5 million federal to,
And then would you look into at any time, like, because we have south of Cokato now is all concrete all the way down to Highway 7 with McLeod County and us, I mean, together. Is there a possibility you would do that with concrete when you did do it?
that is something we're looking at, is possibly a concrete overlay. We're gonna have to look at the cost, though.
Okay,
See
because
what's,
sometimes, I mean, it was real competitive, and
It was.
I'm just
The
thinking.
project south of Cokato, we had 6 miles we were reconstructing, and then there were 2 more miles that McLeod joined in with us. So with 8 miles of concrete, at that time bituminous was much higher than it is
Yeah.
today. So even the upfront cost was about the same, and the life cycle cost is much
Way-
better for
way
concrete.
Okay.
But we
it's
do look
something-
at that
It's something
each
you're
time.
looking at
Yes.
anyway, though. Okay.
So how much is bituminous down from a few years ago?
Oh, we were up near $58 a ton, and this year we got some prices around 39.
wow.
Okay, so the argument that it's always cheaper to do it now and it won't be this cheap again doesn't always hold so true, does it?
Doesn't.
No.
We learned that this spring.
Okay,
Fluctuation prices.
so,
Sometimes you never know, though.
so I guess my point is doing it now just because someone think, you know, I mean, that isn't always the best path, but, that concrete road is gonna be interesting. I'm sure it will last a long, long time, but when it doesn't, managing it and repairing it, I think will be a challenge, but that's just because
Well,
it's not what you're used to.
It's not what we're used to, but we'll be able to handle it. And then McLeod does a lot of it. They have a lot of concrete highways, and we'll be able to glean some of their experience.
Oh, McLeod has a lot of
They do.
concrete highway?
Yeah, they're in an area where they don't have a lot of the gravel resources we do, and their bituminous prices are generally higher, so they do have a lot of concrete highways.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
I just want to make sure too that County Road 19, up by the outlet mall in Albertville, that if that new entertainment mall goes in, that we'll be able to move this ahead, the project ahead that is scheduled for 2019, I think? Was it?
Yes.
Yeah, we actually got federal dollars in the year 2020 to build it, but we're showing that we're going to advance it to try and get it done sooner, knowing that that project's coming,
Yeah, but if.
possibly.
But if that happens sooner than what we all expect, are we gonna be able to somehow advance, or we're just gonna have to swap and do something else? Or do that one first and put
Well-
something else off?
We'll need to talk then.
well, Virgil, you know, I mean, it's not uncommon for sometimes development in itself to require enhancements to the road, and along with that development comes some expectation of participation. I mean,
Correct.
when Target came here, they paid for most or part of those stoplights on 55, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
For example. Would you anticipate that this project would be such a game changer there, that there would be an expectation that something with the road is gonna have to change specifically because of them, and that there'd be participation as part of that?
I would hope so, and those are some of the studies that haven't been done yet, some of the impact studies that would show what impact it'll have on the local system for transportation, and the city of Albertville will certainly require those documents to be prepared. It just hasn't gotten to that point yet, but.
Mr. Chair, I want to make sure that people understand the history with the outlet mall. They did pay for that stoplight there, which they needed, just like Target did. They did pay for it.
Yes.
And that,
That is past
the announcement with
practice.
the Mall of Entertainment did cause MinDOT to now relook at that 19 and 70th Street intersection. Which way is the best, which roundabout, stoplight, whatever they're looking at right now.
Yeah, they're also gonna have to look at the freeway 19 there too, because if that happens, there's no way that they're gonna all be able to run down, Conroe 37 in Albertville. They're gonna have to change that entrance to the freeway too.
Well, they've got it on paper, so.
Yeah, there's a planning meeting this afternoon at MinDOT in St. Cloud that I'll be attending to extend the 3-lane on 94 from 241 to 19. So that's already being looked at.
But you're right, 37 there from 19 over to the freeway would be out of control, I think, if you add, well, I don't know how many cars this would add, but if it was similar to the outlet mall in numbers,
Try and take a left from Main Street of Albertville onto 37, sometimes it's near impossible.
Now, yeah,
Virgil, I think you did a nice job with this. I just like the whole layout and look, and, I
Yeah,
mean,
very nice.
not only is the information good, but I think,
And one thing, Mr. Chair, I'd like to point out for the public is when they do the colors in different areas, you're trying to keep the geographical location close for
Correct.
contractors in one area at a time.
I should point that out. Thank you for the compliment, Commissioner Swatsky, and this will be posted on the internet. We'll update that once it's approved, so it'll be available online. But the areas of the pavement preservation, right now, we just show years 2017 and 18, but each spring we'll update once we know the following year. So this map will be continually updated each spring to show the following years, the upcoming years' pavement preservation.
And then, Virgil, I have one more thing too. On County Road 16 south of Delano, I've been approached by a lot of people and they're asking, is there any way we could get a wider shoulder on, for people going into town? It's kind of narrow right now.
That has a 6-foot paved shoulder already. And we'll be,
Okay.
when we do the pavement preservation, we'll keep that in place.
Okay. Well, 6 foot should be enough to,
That meets,
I would
that
say
meets,
that's-
it's got a lot more
Meets
than we
current
have on the eastern part of the county.
37 doesn't have any shoulder.
well, I deserve to have better in my district.
Yeah, right.
which one is one with the trail, 17?
17 will have the trail.
17 has a trail, separated trail on it.
Yeah, so they got a trail on one and 6-foot shoulders on the other.
They're doing
Listen.
fine.
And, that's one of those things where I said about trails, if people use them, I'm much more inclined to support them. Whereas if we build a trail and nobody comes, it's kind of a wasted. I think both of those areas are pretty well used, so we'd have to have Mark in here to say for sure, but.
Mr. Chair? And I do want to compliment him too, that he's got it on here, Virgil has on here that it can, the 5-year plan be modified, and yes, that it is only a plan.
Yes.
If something changes that we don't foresee, that we
Correct.
can make changes.
Not only can it be modified, it will be modified.
Right.
Probably, yeah.
Like this year, we were able to do more projects, so that's great.
Right, it's flexible, it's a, living document of each year, things change, funding levels, prices, like bituminous this year were low, so.
Is there a motion to approve the plan?
So
There is a change.
Or, let's see, we got the minutes first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I should go through the second item talked about at the committee was a request from the city of Buffalo regarding a retaining wall along Highway 35, and after discussion, it was a consensus that we enter into agreement with a 50/50 cost share with the city of Buffalo, not to exceed $177,000 for the reconstruction of the retaining wall. And we have sent over a memo of understanding to the city
Okay.
stating that.
And they will use the proper retaining wall blocks this time around instead of those,
Yes.
those ones were not quite right for that situation, but at the time, who knows?
Yep.
When was that originally done?
91, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So it's been quite a while.
It was after that, wasn't it?
Well, I was thinking it was 91 or in that area, maybe.
Because it was done the same time that road was shifted, right?
Yes.
Well, it could be 90. I was here when it happened, and I got here in 91, so, but I just don't remember it happening so quickly. But in retrospect, I think it was 91 or 92, because I think
Actually, it says
I
in
think
the notes.
Michelle Bogengrief and
3 to 94.
Arlen Nelson and Wes Bukowski were still on the, when did it say?
93 and 94.
Oh, 93, 94.
So they were probably maybe here when it was being talked about and the construction didn't take place for after they left then. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I do have a correction on the minutes.
Okay.
Introductions, first one, Chairperson Swatsky, not Potter.
So do you want to move the minutes, the recommendations and that correction?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Motion by Potter, second by Delight. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. And then,
Thank you. Second item I have is an approved owners committee meeting from June 2nd.
so was that approval of those minutes also included the 5-year plan then? That was one of the recommendations, I presume? Okay. Okay, go ahead, Virgil.
The owners committee for the new highway building, June 2nd, the minutes, just give a brief overview. Ken Francis gave a updated timeline for the new building and presented some change orders totaling $4,480. There was also a review of the budget, and it's still tracking in at about 10.5% under budget, which is about $1.7 million. There's some training that's being done day by day as we speak, so we're getting the right folks to the training as soon as we find out about it for the new building. Currently, it's estimated or anticipated that we would be moving into the new building July 6th or 7th with furniture the 27th of June. And just want to express my appreciation for all the other departments' help in getting the new building up and going. IT's played a big part of it, administration. I know there's a lot involved coordinating this that a lot of the departments have had a hand in. Just want to say thank you to them.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
On the change order review, just for public information, 1,800 of it was additional power voice data outlets. Once they got the squared in area, then they sat with where it's going to be, and then they said, well, actually, there's one over here, but we probably need one over here, a few different configurations, so it's easier to put it in now than trying to do it after you get all the desks, equipment, shelves, everything else, and it's just a lot cheaper to do it right now. And it's, so it made sense when they were explaining it to me that this is something they need to do now. And the rest of it is pretty simple. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the owners committee minutes.
Motion by Potter, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Delight. Any further discussion? One thing, there was $25,000 in the budget for a sign, and I think somewhere along the line, Mike, we told them that that's too much money for a sign, and now they kind of agreed. I think $11,000 is what it looks like the sign's gonna cost, so.
Correct.
What about those, there was some wiring that was gonna be eliminated if it hadn't been done already. Did we catch that in time? Remember that? If you don't know, Virgil, that's fine.
I'll have to
but-
check, but I believe so.
You think we caught it in time? Okay. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Virgil.
You.
Lee Kelly, you got the next one here.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a continuation of the discussion. We had the minutes from the Technology Committee last week where we had discussed retaining the board video. The recommendation of the committee was for 1 year, and there was kind of some questions on how that figure was arrived at. And so I had asked some folks from IT to come today and maybe talk through that a little bit. It's my sense that there are a few jurisdictions that are using that period of time, and it seems to work well, but it might be a preference to change that, but it's up to the board a little bit too, so.
Good
Mr.
morning.
Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. So I guess some of the questions are probably around why the 1-year retention schedule suggestion. And our records management analyst, Scott Larson, is here to answer a lot of those questions.
Good morning, chairpersons. I have done my research looking at the recommended retention for board meeting videos, and the retention has been suggested 1 year, a minimum of 1 year by the state, because the video is not considered a permanent record. The minutes themselves are. Looking at other states just to see, or other states and other counties to see what they're doing with their videos, it's about 50-50. It's either 1 year or 1 month, because 1 month after the meeting is typically when the meeting minutes are approved, and they're made the official record for the county. It's considered a transitory record, just a record to create a new one. And then the question came up, I believe, in the meeting that Lee had last week was, how often are people going back to revisit the videos once they're created? Is it a year, a month, 2 weeks? And I believe you had more information on that with.
Yeah, the administration department goes back, I don't know, how far would you say, Lee? A week, a month? at
My most frequent look back is relative to the most recent meeting, or maybe a month back. You know, there are times where we do have to look up things that are farther back. However, oftentimes those are looking in the minutes for that is the easiest way for me to find it. So I guess I personally would feel comfortable with the 1 year period, just for the point of discussion.
And I also checked with the attorney's office. The farthest they go back is maybe a week. I think Tom Kelly watches it live, that's it, and doesn't go back any farther than that. So we're not seeing a lot of heavy usage.
Hi, Tom, we should give Tom a hi right now.
Yeah, say hi to Tom, we're in the camera. Hey, Tom. So I guess, what are some of your specific questions or concerns about that suggested policy?
Charlie?
It doesn't cost us anything to leave that on YouTube with our new system, right?
Correct. There's no charge for
So,
YouTube.
but then my thing would be why take it off? I mean, because maybe there's one person that does want to go back and look at a meeting year and a half ago or whatever.
So is there drawbacks to leaving it on more than a year? Is there reasons we shouldn't do that?
That's something I have to find out more on the legal side, because with a retention schedule, when an item is listed on there, every iteration of that record should be deleted on that date. So if you have 5 copies of the board minutes, you'd destroy all 5 of them because they're the same record, just multiple iterations of it.
But don't you want to keep at least one of those 5?
Yes, you would,
Okay.
permanently. And that's what the
How do you say you
Videos.
destroy all 5?
the video itself would be used to create that minute, those actual written minutes, and that written minute is what's a permanent record. And the question then is, how long do you keep the video once those minutes have been approved?
I thought you just said it was permanently.
The minutes are permanent, correct?
Oh.
But the video used to create those minutes,
But what's the disadvantage to keeping the video permanent? You know, archive it and put it on a floppy not floppy, but a disk drive or whatever.
Have to get a lot of
Don't use
floppies.
floppies anymore.
Gotta go buy a floppy drive. You know, right now, for 2015, we use about 14 gigs of space for video, and we're moving to HD, so we're gonna see probably a large size increase for the videos. One of the primary concerns is space. Now, leaving it on YouTube doesn't cost us any space. The kind of gray area legally with that is if there's some kind of litigation or some kind of, do we still have to go back and
Discover it.
discover it, you know, if
Right.
we're keeping it for 6 years on YouTube, but only officially keeping it in our retention
But-
for 1 year.
But if there is a lawsuit 6 years from now and you can go back and watch the whole meeting, the truth be what it is, you know, whether, you know, whatever.
Yep. So, yeah, the
I
question
would
is,
say
we
that-
wanted to actually do that.
you know,
and the attorneys can actually flag videos, or flag any record actually, for longer retention. So if you feel that there's going to be a case against whatever came up during the meeting, the attorneys can actually say, okay, we're gonna stop the retention policy on this particular video and keep it until this matter is resolved.
okay. And so would you be able to put a board meeting on one DVD?
Currently, yes.
Okay. And you don't?
Currently.
You don't think you
When
will?
we go to HD, no.
Well, it depends on how long it goes and
Okay.
size of it. Generally, I think we could.
I don't know, I just don't see that, I mean, whether it's 2 2 DVDs, then, I mean, it costs you then 50 cents, you know, whatever. I just don't see why you couldn't just keep them in perpetuity, you know.
Commissioner Houston?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. I'm very comfortable with the 1-year retention, and if you wanted to put something on a thumb drive or, you know, who knows what the technology is going to be, if you're going to be able to convert that in 5 years or 10 years or whatever, but we do have the minutes as a permanent record and the chance of going back. I mean, I don't think I would go back and watch a video after a year unless if we had some kind of a small way to keep it rather than, you know, putting everything out there and so they have to go into the cloud, and I don't know, it just seems like the retention of data is overwhelming at this point. So you have to think about that too. How much space do you want to use in this World Wide Web? I don't know.
And then we have to manage and make sure we're keeping track of where the DVDs and thumb drives are stored.
Yeah, and that would be the other thing, you know, it'd have to be categorized and organized and marked, but
Now, the state is recommending 1 year for video, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we can't have longer. You know, if we wanted to do 2 years, we're within our rights to do that. What we probably can't do is shorten that, so, you know, keep it 6 months when they're, you know, if they're recommending 1 year.
Mr. Delyden?
If an individual had a concern about a particular meeting, they can go to YouTube and they can download it onto a disk or a thumb drive or hard drive, whatever they want.
Yeah, there's ways to do that.
So if somebody else has a concern about a particular meeting, they could do that.
Yes.
So Charlie, you could actually do it yourself.
So the YouTube ones will stay there anyway.
No, no, we'll be dropping them off
That's
at the
After a year.
same as everything else.
Yeah, that's the question. Do we want to actually keep the YouTube, you know, that's the other question. Do we want to set a retention schedule, and then do we also want to have YouTube follow that? Anoka County is deleting their videos from YouTube after 90 days, from what I understand. You know, matching, that's their retention policy for video. So they're actually removing it off of YouTube.
Mr. Potter?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Adam, are you comfortable with the 1-year retention, what the state's recommending for this? Is that,
I am comfortable with that,
you're
yes.
comfortable with it? Okay, with that, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve keeping the videos for the 1-year retention.
Motion by Potter, is there a second?
Okay.
Second by Houston, any further discussion?
I guess, Mike, would you make a friendly amendment? It doesn't cost us anything to leave them on YouTube. At some point, YouTube will delete them, you know. I don't see the harm in just leaving it on YouTube. There's no reason to go in and manually delete it after a year on YouTube. We could just leave it on there, as long as YouTube allows it, you know, they'll start deleting it at some point themselves.
I don't, and Mike can answer that, but I don't necessarily, if the motion is for 1 year and kind of yours is not to have a limit, I don't necessarily.
I'll make, okay, I'll make
a friendly amendment.
I'll make an amendment, offer an amendment to the motion then, to go ahead and delete the ones in our custody, but leave the YouTube ones on as long as, YouTube, they don't charge us for anything for keeping it. There's
Okay,
no,
so the
there's no
amendment is
maintenance,
to ones that are in our
custody.
custody. The old way, apparently,
Yeah.
get rid of them after 1 year, the YouTube ones to leave on.
Just leave it and
So
let
for
YouTube-
Mike's motion, not to apply to the YouTube ones is what you're
Correct.
mentioning.
Okay.
Is there a second to that amendment? Is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second to that amendment too for discussion.
Okay, go ahead with discussion.
I would like to hear from either the bow tie guy or Brian.
679.
Mr. Chair,
Sir,
did you have a
Sir,
question, or
I'll
you
be
just want to hear from me?
glad. Pardon?
Do you have a question, or you just want to hear from
I
me?
just want to hear from you. I
Oh.
want to make sure you were awake back there.
Okay. Mr. Chair,
We
Commissioner
will-
Delyden,
Just so the people from the courts, it'll be 11 a.m. till we get, or excuse me, 10 a.m. until we get to that. It just at least 10 a.m., just so you know. So you're welcome to stay, but if you want to go somewhere for 24 minutes, you're welcome to do that too.
just a couple of comments. The beauty of a retention policy is that it allows you to get rid of data. It doesn't say you have to. So as has been discussed, if we know of a case, if our office knows of a case where we would like to retain the data for more, or this recording for more than a year, we'll let someone know. Leaving a bunch of stuff out there with YouTube gets into kind of a murky area, because if we have an agreement with them to use their system, then there's a question, are we maintaining the data? And so it has more to do with data requests. You know, somebody comes in and wants all the video recordings of board meetings for the last 5 years or something. It gets to be burdensome in some respects for us to have to deal with those types of requests. So, I mean, I think our office is really okay with what Adam is suggesting here with a 1-year policy, so.
But Brian, if they came in and made that request, you could just say, look, it's on YouTube, get it yourself.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Burrell, I'm not
Because
completely convinced of that.
we would charge them to do that, and would make sure that we made money, so they would
Correct.
be ridiculous for them not to just go to YouTube and.
Yeah, we would charge them, and, but I'm, you know, well, and I'm dealing with the data request question that doesn't deal with the discovery question in litigation, where we might have to produce the stuff. You know, by and large, you know, we kind of quizzed people in our office, and we said, do you really go back and look at these? And no one does, for our purposes, so.
Any further discussion? So a vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Amendment fails, 1-4. The original motion is back on the table. Any final comments on the original motion?
Well, you know, we talk about being open, and here we are and whatever, and now this just seems like we're, you know, we want to hide this stuff, we want to get rid of it in a year, you know. I just don't like it.
Well, Charlie, I was the one that originally pushed the video.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. But after a year, I don't see anybody really ever wanting to look at it again. And I've gone back and looked at videos myself. But I've never really looked back past a year. And to try and deal with the data, you know, having it on YouTube, and I am concerned about a litigation system where we can't charge, we have to do discovery, and that would be a burden on our county attorneys. So that's where my concern is, and I can't believe that if litigation is going to occur, it's going to occur within a year. I can't believe that it's going to go back 6 years or anything like that. And with what we have with YouTube, if somebody does have an issue, they can't download that video themselves. So.
Yeah, I don't see it as a lack of transparency at all. I mean, the meetings are open to the public. They can come here, they can watch them on video, a live stream, or they would have an entire year to do that.
So, I mean, I think we're being very old.
But if we're talking about taking our time and expending money, county dollars, whatever, it takes effort for us to go in and delete it from YouTube. If we didn't do it, it wouldn't cost us anything.
No, actually, it doesn't take us effort, because on YouTube, you can state how long it's going to be there, and it just automatically drops off.
Mr. Chair,
It took effort to do that.
I'd like to
Mr.
call
Potter?
a question.
Anything else, Charlie? How long ago did we start doing YouTube? How many weeks ago?
YouTube, we started piloting at the beginning of the year with limited success until we got all the bugs worked out.
Okay.
Now it's been going really rock solid.
Okay. Any further discussion? Yeah, and I mean, I personally, I don't have a problem if they stay out there forever and they're always available, except that it sounds like it may create issues for us that, and I don't know, what if for some reason these ones get lost and those ones don't, or someone being alleged that, oh, cover up, you know.
Right.
You know, why is the one we want, we can't find, but I can find 5 other ones, and.
One of Anoka's points also is YouTube does not guarantee that they're going to keep your video.
Right.
Well, there's a good example. So what if 20% of them go down, and that happens to be one of the ones that somebody really thinks they need for their case, and the next thing, people are alleging that, you know, the county did something and they wanted to hide that one, but why are the other 80% up? If we get rid of all of them after a year, then I guess, you you know, that's the way it is.
I
And
think legally it's cleaner.
any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous, or carries 4-1. Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yep, thanks. Greg Kreiser.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I think my 9:30 item should probably be first because that's actually a public hearing.
Okay,
scheduled.
let's go ahead and do that one. I know we've got some people here for both, so.
We do, I know.
So let's take the 9:30 public hearing item.
I'll be quick on this. This is a joint effort, I guess Amendment 16.3 that's before the board and the joint powers agreement that's before you is a joint effort that Wright County entered into with Stearns County. We've been working on this for a number of years, and I think we have come to a good resolution here. And we are proposing to adopt amendments which would regulate no wakes in the event of high water on Lake Augusta, Lake Caroline, Clearwater Lake, Grass Lake, Lake Louisa, and Lake Marie. These are all of our border lakes that we have with Stearns County. I have received comment back from Southside Township. They were mainly in regards to the amendment I have before you. I think they also had something as well. They might have a couple lakes out there, but they were in agreement with both of the proposed amendments I have before you. Corinna was in favor of it. Clearwater, I believe, met last night. I haven't heard anything back from them. I think they had one lake that was in Clearwater Township, or they shared with Corinna Township. So that's the township input that I have. We are looking at regulating the no wakes using elevations on a dam. I believe the Grass Lake Dam would regulate most of them. One of the other lakes has a different dam. I think it's the ones farther south down the chain. Has a different dam that would be used as the elevation point. And the triggering point that we're using for the majority of them, the lakes on the Grass Lake Dam, also coincides with the closing of the valve on Pleasant Lake over to Clearwater Lake. So it has a triggering mechanism. It isn't just an arbitrary number that we picked. It actually has some basis with the DNR as to a high water trigger point. Also, we are looking at creating a permanent no-wake zone in the channel between Lake Augusta and Clearwater Lake. It's always been posted that way, and now we're officially going to codify it that way. Stearns County adopted these amendments last month, and in order for the DNR regulations to go through an approval, we have to adopt the same thing with the joint powers agreement, which you have before you. And then additionally, board would take it up. Staff is proposing Amendment 16.3A, which is an amendment to 16.3. Staff is requesting to raise the lake elevation on Lake Sylvia by 6 inches. We can bring it up here, Lee, but right now Lake Sylvia's no wake elevation is at the ordinary high water mark, which is the line going through the map that I have up here on the gauge. And as you can see, right now technically Lake Sylvia is at a high water elevation point. This happened actually before Memorial Day. We received notification of that, triggering the 300-foot no wake. And as a response to that, staff is requesting that we increase it 6 inches because of the resources that are devoted when this comes into play. And this is happening a little bit too frequently for staff to actively be doing this. And I think it's starting to erode some of the public confidence in our no-wake ordinance as well, because if it happens too frequently, and there really wasn't a lot of rain, there wasn't a lot of snowpack, there wasn't a lot of rain this year, and I think it might be eroding some of the public confidence in our no-wake elevation point as well. So if you look at the map that I have before you, if we were to raise it 6 inches, the high water point, it would still have triggered in 2012, and at the high point in between 2014 and 2015. And those were two very significant high water moments that we had. The most recent being when the state actually allowed an emergency no wake to be imposed across the entire state. So I think 6 inches is reasonable, but staff would leave it up to the board and I guess public comment.
Okay. Does Commissioners have any questions before we go to public comment?
Yeah, so we're going to 1050.5 or 1050.6?
It'd be 1050.58,
5.8.
which is, it's about 7 inches, I think is how it works out.
Now, Greg, do you feel we should handle the first one and then get comment and then act on that and then handle the second, or just take comment on both of them back and forth?
I think we can take comment on both of them back and forth. The way I drafted it, because I don't know if the board wants to adopt it on the Lake Sylvia one, is that the
16.3A would be an amendment to 16.3, so be incorporated into it.
And as far as public notice, do we notice all property owners on these lakes, or we just notice the lake associations?
I noticed the Lake Association, they had a board meeting on it.
I know we put a notice in the paper too.
Put a notice in the paper. I noticed the townships. I tried to get it out as much as I could.
Clearwater Township must be associated with a couple of,
Whichever lake is farthest to the north. I don't know if it's Grass Lake.
or
They might be
we didn't
associated
get no
with Grass-
comment back from Clearwater Township, I think
They
you
had their
said?
meeting last night. I didn't get an email from them this morning.
Okay.
Grass Lake's right at the border.
Yeah.
Okay, at this time, then we'll take public hearing on these two ordinance amendments. If anyone would like to speak, please raise your hand. Sir, come on up and give us your name, maybe what lake or your address.
Thank you, Chairman and the Commissioners. My name is Roger Rauschendorfer, and I live on Lake Augusta. And we were maybe the instigators to try and get the two counties to come to an agreement with it. And we are maybe one of the lakes that get affected the most when we have a high water situation because of the contour of the lake that we occur. A lot of shoreline damage, a lot of property damage and things of this nature. So we urge the board, if you will, to just get the joint agreement together so that we can enforce a violator that comes when we are in a high water situation, which, as gentleman before us indicated, we now have a trigger point that everybody is pretty well agreed within all the lakes that would be affected. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak to the ordinance amendments as proposed?
Mr. Chair?
Okay, why don't we, one more
Oh.
time, anybody else wish to speak? Then we'll close the public hearing at this time. Okay, Commissioner Hewsome?
I want to thank our attorney, Greg Kreiser, because he's been working with the Stearns County attorney on this, and of course, all the lake associations. And you're right, I mean, Lake Augusta has kind of gotten this thing going, was it 2 or 3 years ago now? It's been a long time. And so it's nice to see that Stearns County has signed the agreement, and I'm pleased with it. And that they decided, it started with Lake Augusta, and then Stearns County decided that they wanted to do all of our bordering lakes, and certainly to come to that agreement's been great.
Okay, maybe we can, as long as we're just talking up here, kind of focus on the ones with Stearns right now.
Okay, yep.
I guess it seems like we haven't got any negative impact here today or in any letter form, so
No, we have support from the 2 townships anyway, and
I'd certainly be supportive. I know this was something that Commissioner Thielen was kind of working on a number of years ago and abandoned, I think, and he's kind of had some struggles with it, but maybe you were working with her on it at that time, Greg, when it wasn't
Little
getting
bit,
too far
yeah.
with Stearns or something
Yeah.
like that, so.
Yeah. You know, it's been a process, and
It has.
I know I talked with the attorney's office up there at our annual County Attorneys Association meeting in December, and we talked about doing this, and, well, when the water's frozen, it tends to go to the back burner, and
Yep.
when May came up, we started really trying to do this again pretty quick here, and I think, you know, given our notice provisions and trying to get stuff out to the townships and getting it scheduled, I think, you know, mid-June, unfortunately, it's, I think,
Well,
pretty good.
at least we haven't had the water this year
Yes.
that we had the last
Yes.
couple.
Any other questions or comments up here? So somewhere here, we must have the exact language, or,
Mr. Chair?
yes,
I do have one question regarding the second item. Are we going to be,
methods? Or, the second item, the second, the Lake Sylvia?
yeah, now, we're going to be having two separate approvals here, or just what?
What I'm looking at having the board do, and the way I drafted the proposed amendments, is that you would move 16.3, and then If you want to adopt 16.3A, you would amend 16.3 to incorporate 16.3A into it. So you're amending, the approval document 16.3. If you want the amendment, that gets amended into it. So you'd be approving the amendment as
Okay,
amended.
so we are having 2 seconds.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
You
So
first
then-
move 16.3, and then if you want to adopt 16.3A,
Okay.
you would move to amend it.
All right.
So
then I'll ma-
16.3 is the agreement with Stearns County?
Yes.
I'll
Okay.
make a motion to approve Amendment 16.3.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Delight, second by Commissioner Husum. Any further discussion?
Yes, and then staff would ask that the board then amend 16.3 and incorporate ordinance amendment number 16.3A into it.
Are we going
which
to
is
vote
the
on the
six
other
that
one
we-
Well, first, we're gonna,
Well, this is an amendment to the amendment.
Oh, so it has to be part of this motion.
I'm trying to amend the amendment, so trying to have one approval document. I apologize if I,
okay, one that includes Stearns,
and Sylvia.
Lakes, and the
Yes.
change to Sylvia?
Yes.
Okay, so,
I kept it separate so that the board could have it.
We just can't vote on this one right now and then take a vote to,
Could,
I-
yes.
I think
I'm just
that
trying
might
to
be
make it
better.
cleaner
to
for
make
our,
it cleaner.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be
Okay.
cleaner.
That's why I was asking.
Yeah, you answered them the wrong way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
You're confusing me more than I'm normally confused.
So you're okay with us just taking a vote on
I'm
the
fine
Stearns
with it.
agreement?
Whatever works.
We have a motion on the Stearns agreement right now.
Yep.
And relative to the ordinance. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries unanimous.
Okay.
Now we have the issue of,
The amendment.
16.3A.
Lake
amendment.
Sylvia.
Okay, so, you've got something from Lake Sylvia here.
Yes, their lake association is not in favor of the increase.
Right, but you had come up with an agreement with them, or you had suggested that we would have a seasonal 150-foot
Yes.
Right.
I
no
offered that
lake
as a
ordinance
compromise, yes.
for the whole summer, and then when it got so high, then it would go up to 300. So I don't understand why a 150-foot would be, that's more than any other lake has.
There are a couple lakes that have 150 in the county. I believe Lake.
Yeah, we
Lake
have them in our
Ann-
packet, I
Lake
believe.
Ann, and we approved one last year on Lake Charlotte has a 150. So.
But
so,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, that's still better than having nothing.
Yes. And they are not in favor of the seasonal, is what I was indicated yesterday, too.
Seasonal.
Yep.
Just the trigger when it gets to a high water mark,
Yes.
then it comes on, but
Yes.
not just a blanket seasonal.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Protter, yes, they were not in favor of a seasonal. When I
What was
talked to
the-
Mr. Hector.
They don't want a 150-foot wake when the level,
They don't want any changes to the ordinance.
What is, as the DNR, I know the DNR is not changing the high water elevation, not like that, but do they have a position relative to the county's concerns about maybe the elevation being too low right now?
Commissioner Swatsky, have not talked to the DNR about this proposed change. They did approve the ordinance at the ordinary high water mark, as it currently sits.
and the reason we want to change this is,
It's too frequent, Commissioner Dahlleiten. If you look at the map, the way that this has gone, it's pretty much every year they have had a no-wake trigger out there. And this went into their no-wake elevation got triggered in mid-May, actually, this year, when we didn't have a heavy snowpack and we didn't have a lot of rain. And it's very frequent, and it takes away from staff resources and on other lakes. I mean, the Wright County Sheriff has over 200 lakes that they have to patrol and monitor, and significant resources are to be devoted to just this one
Right.
because of this
But-
low triggering
Because when
point.
it happens, it's not just Sylvia, it's 20 other lakes around and,
That would be our hope, that it would coincide with high water on all the other lakes, yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to 3A.
Yes.
Motion by Commissioner Delight, is there a second?
a second.
Second by Commissioner Burrell, any further discussion?
Comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I know the township supports that, and it makes sense with resources. The sheriff's department supports that. I don't know why the Lake Association, no one's spoken with me. I mean, aside from the email that you got and shared with us. So that's my only concern, that I'm not sure why they're why they're not on board with this?
So Sylvia and Southside both support this.
No,
Sylvia does not, Southside
Sylvia-
Township does.
I meant not Sylvia, it's Corinna and Southside both.
well, Corinna's not in this,
There's a little bit of Corinna in,
Not on Sylvia.
Sylvia. It's in Southside. The two lakes are in Southside.
well, I feel like a little bit of it's in Corinna, but okay, it's not, okay. It's entirely, both those lakes are entirely in,
Yes.
In
They're entirely
Southside.
in Southside Township.
okay.
They're well south of
They must
Southside.
be, or Corinna must be real close to that lake then,
They're, yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
not,
Miles.
Okay. Really, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like a little clarity from the motion maker of what exactly are we voting on to make sure so many things have been bantered about here.
We're making a motion to change the elevation for the trigger
6 inches.
from 1,050.08 to 1,050.58 above sea level.
And that would
That's
trigger.
when the 300-foot no wake ordinance would get triggered.
Okay, thank you for that clarity.
And then we also
and
have-
it also puts in a seasonal
Seasonal
150 from Memorial Day to Labor Day.
So an increase in 6 inches
For a 300-foot.
for the 300 foot, okay.
And then the three, staff threw in the seasonal 150 as a compromise, but I don't know if the Lake Association wants that or not. It sounded as if from my conversation yesterday that they did not.
Well, if they don't want it, then it seems to me we should take it out.
Well, the problem is, this has been out for a while, and then we get an email this morning from the president of the association. And they don't have anybody here.
That's,
Yeah, no, I know, I wish somebody
That's-
was here, and
I,
they've had since, what?
that's my concern, Mr. Chair. It makes sense, since we're always above, or we've been above that high water mark, that it's not, we've gone, actually, way above it at some points, and,
Yeah.
in our wet years.
We can always have another public meeting on the 150 if they really want to.
Yeah,
The thing is, I mean, we are dealing with a lot of county resources to go on and off, on and off, on and off. To me, it doesn't make any sense to keep it lowered and have a 300-foot, or if we just had a 150-foot all the time, and then when it gets really bad, we go to the 300-foot
right,
level.
yeah.
If you don't put the seasonal thing in there, then they are going to go up, all the way up to 1,050.58, whatever, before anything would happen. And like right now, they would have had a 300-foot in there how many times during that? So you're better off, I think, with the 150-foot seasonal, you actually have some protection to the lake.
I think so.
And I guess
I
if they
agree.
didn't like that, they could come and we could amend it back, but I think right now, otherwise, they're not gonna have any protection until they hit that 1,050.58.
I think it's a good compromise.
Yeah. Do we have a motion?
Yeah. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign?
Aye.
And Mr. Chair, I'm going to abstain from voting at this. I feel a little bit uncomfortable because of this. This just came in at the last minute. I was, like I say, I support it, but I don't want to vote for it if all the people on the lake are opposed to it.
And I guess, Chris, where I'm at is, they could come back and
Yeah,
we
okay.
would
And that's-
re-entertain it.
We got 2 yes votes down here, is that correct?
Three yes votes, yep.
Well, I haven't even
Oh.
spoke yet, but
Okay.
Well, we have 2 down there.
by not doing so, I guess that would imply consent. So the motion passes 3-1-1.
Then, Mr. Chair, the joint powers agreement with Stearns Lake for the joint enforcement of Lake Augusta, Lake Caroline, Clearwater Lake, Grass Lake, Lake Louisa, and Lake Marie.
Yay.
We need
I
a
guess,
vote.
having been part of the majority, if for some reason we really missed here and they need to take a look at it, I'd be willing to bring it back. so.
Exactly.
And Mr. Chair, I want to be clear, the reason I didn't vote for it is the seasonal 150s are problematic for the sheriff's department and everything else, and I'd rather have some trigger for that. Like you got the 300, I'd rather have a trigger for it instead of just a blanket seasonal,
It seems
wake
that
zone.
the sheriff's department is involved with this changes, aren't they?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
What about the
Okay.
joint powers agreement?
I need the motion to approve the joint powers agreement.
I didn't
Thought we
see
did
that
that.
listed on here.
It's in your packet.
Oh, I thought we did that one.
I'll make a motion for the joint powers agreement.
Second.
Motion by Delide, second by Potter. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
I guess I kind of thought we approved that one.
I thought we did, I was
The first
thinking
thing,
that
that's
too.
what I thought too,
Yeah.
but
Make it
Yeah, I
official.
don't
what
know.
were we approving the first time?
Those attorney
The
just
amendment.
confuses us all the time.
Okay.
All right, and then my next two items, Mr. Chair, are authorizing funding on two public health nuisances, one in the Montrose Manor and then one in the city of Maple Lake. The one in Montrose Manor, I think, is going to end up resolving on its own, but we're still looking for funding in the event that the agreement we've reached is going to, may fall through. I think we'll know by tomorrow how that one's going to go. I know you, acting as your public health board, has already reviewed that one. The new one in Maple Lake came about from a referral from the sheriff's department, and it's a very bad condition on the house, and it needs to be remediated rather quickly.
Separate motions or one motion?
I think one would be fine.
I'll make a motion to approve the funding for abatement of public health nuisances in Maple Lake and also in Montrose.
Funding source was professional services?
I think it would have to be yes.
Professional services is the funding source then?
Yeah, and then it will go back to the
It will,
tax roll.
yes,
Yeah. Well, we'll get paid back, yeah, for
Yeah.
that.
eventually, with interest.
Motion by Delide,
Second
second
that.
by Burrell. Any further discussion? Carol, anything to add? I assume this is why you're here, not an ad? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
And then, Mr. Chair, if I could, just for informational, the gentleman who, item on the consent agenda, I think it's item E, it actually showed up after you approved it. He wanted to talk to the board. I told him he probably has to wait till the end of the board, just so you're aware, he's here,
Okay.
on the abatement on our consent agenda item.
Okay. We will, is everybody okay with that? We've taken action, so I mean, I guess if we decide to change our action, we can do that, but otherwise we'll give the individual an opportunity to address the board, and as soon as we're done with our discussion with the courts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Lee, you want to kick off the court discussion?
Certainly. Mr. Chair, as you know, we've had a study conducted by the National Center for State Courts to look at forecasting our needs for the courts area into the future up to 2040. Additionally, most recently, we had contracted with Wold to look at if it was feasible to expand and continue operations into the courts area that's already existing here at the Government Center downtown campus. At our meeting in May 24th, our committee of the whole, I think it was the consensus of those that were present that it did not appear to be financially prudent or fiscally smart to try and expand at this current location. I guess my recommendation, I would kind of like to see some closure if the board feels that they've seen enough information, which I feel we have, from the work that Wold has done on that study. I think it would be good to accept those findings at this time and then discuss future action moving forward on that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
The one thing we have to do finish with Wold is at least to get the interim problems resolved with the courts, with the technology. And that was one of the things, one of the keys we still do need to solve. And they had come up with, if we were to go out and build a 2-year plan of 1.5 million, but a lot of that was dependent on whether or not we could get some approvals by the building and city building inspector if we had plans in the works. Have you had a chance to talk with Wold, the courts, have you had a chance to talk with Wold about what the actual cost could come down to instead of going with this 1.5 million?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good morning. Judge McPherson. In terms of that piece of the puzzle, if you will, that we need to deal with, it was definitely the sentiment of the court administrator and supported by all of the judges that we really need to know what time frame before we can do planning for what is needed, because that is a very different question if we are going to be in this facility for 2 years versus a longer time period. And so we're really waiting for direction from the board about how you want to proceed. But I will tell the board that it is certainly not the intention of the courts that if we're going to be in this building for a very short period of time, we would not support spending $1.5 million at all, nothing close to that. But there are some immediate needs, and we can look at some options, some of which may be very low cost, if this is a shorter duration that we're going to remain in this building. But right now, we do have staffing issues where individuals who need to be in the courtroom and working on our mass calendars have no place. They don't have a place to sit. They don't have a computer to use. We have no place to put them, essentially. So we do need to resolve that issue, but we really need to know what time frame we're talking about before we start diving into that.
Let's say theoretically it would be a 3-year time frame. By the time we would go through all the procedures to get an architect approved and the design phases and the building and all that sort of stuff. Let's say it just took 3 years to get it all done. What do you think something like that would be?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner DeLayden, I don't know what the cost would be, but on a shorter time frame in that 2 to 3 time year, we would not support 1.5 million, nothing close to that. And I do know that the need is pressing, and that we may need to do something temporary relatively quickly. But I can't give you a figure. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Judge McPherson, if they, we say, right, I mean, it doesn't make sense to any of us to spend 1.5 million on sort of a Band-Aid. And so if you start the process, I mean, Wold gave us an idea of how long it takes with the design phase and, the construction phase and that kind of thing. And realistically, it is 2 to 3 years. I mean, from maybe not 3 years might not take 3 years, but certainly it's 2 years is pretty realistic. So how many things do we have to address in that time frame other than perhaps it's not, maybe that's a question we can't exactly answer just on the spur of the moment, but there's things that we need to do now. As you say, if there's not space for these people, we need to find that space. Are there other things that might run up the costs?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Hewsome, the primary need that's been identified, if we were going to be on the shorter range of being in this building 2 to 3 years, is the need for that additional staffing person from court administration. That's the primary need. I won't tell you, though, that there aren't other needs that arise. For instance, unfortunately, we've had another homicide in Wright County. During the last homicide group of cases, one of them was poised to go to trial, and we have to summon a large number of jurors for a case of that nature. We did not have a room to even fit all the jurors in. So thankfully, that case resolved. If one of the cases that's been charged now goes to jury trial, we will be in a bind, and we will have to find a facility or some way to handle that situation. And so needs like that may arise during the interim, but for now, the pressing need is for that second clerk station for our high-volume courtrooms, because we are now paperless, and there is no file that can be passed to a staff member outside the courtroom.
Is this room big enough to do a jury? Or would, like 121?
I wouldn't think,
This room is not set up to handle a criminal jury trial.
No, I'm not saying a
the-
trial,
the
but
jury.
to narrow down the jury, the selection pool.
It is one of the options that we were looking at. There's some obvious challenges with regard to security surrounding that.
Just to address the one question about the jury assembly, for that last trial that Judge McPherson referenced, we brought in 100 jurors and we used
121.
121, and I think that was I think we were a little over capacity even with that room. And then we didn't have them in a secure area.
Yeah, I
A lot
understand.
of participants and media who were there, so.
Well, security wouldn't be much of a problem here. If you, I mean, you've got that area up, to get in that side, you have to go through the,
No, I'm not talking about
All right.
security for screening. I'm talking about just the jurors not being influenced by outside things, like
Okay.
media or other,
I
family
gotcha.
members.
a lot of people
or-
around.
a lot of people.
Yeah, but if
It was
that,
just, they were in a common area. They weren't where we usually assemble a jury in the secure area where there's not outside influences.
and this room's got to be smaller than 121, I would think. You know?
We made accommodations and we can do that. It's just,
yeah, I don't know, I think they're probably about the same, maybe. I'm
it's a
not
very
sure.
difficult thing to do sometimes, and in that case, we had more people in that room than there were supposed to be anyways.
Mr. Chair, I guess I would ask the question of the other board members, but is it maybe something we look at and get go through the process of getting an architect, so we look at what, I mean, I shouldn't say I don't have an idea what a new facility would cost, but I don't have any certainty, I've heard different numbers from, 30 to 50, and I'm
Well,
like,
what was the number of square footage that the gentleman that did a very nice study for us came up with for square footage? He had all that laid out and for a new,
Mike has it.
and what was the square footage, and then what is the typical?
We did a
Mr.
square footage for what our needs are now, and I don't remember the exact numbers, and he did a square footage for our projected needs, I think, till 2040. I think now it was more than or double of what we have. In 2040, I think it was another 15 or 20,000. I thought it was 80.
Just to clarify that, Mr. Chair, I believe we're referencing the National Center for State Courts
Right.
Needs Assessment.
Yeah, so what did he have for square footage?
For the
Projected out, his
projected
projection.
out for 2015, he had a total gross building square foot of 76,903
89,000 is what he's got for,
for 2040.
so let's just round that to 90,000. What's the typical square footage cost for court facilities? There's gotta be an industry standard.
I looked it up, and it's all over the map depending on many factors, anywhere from 250 a square foot to almost 600.
So take a medium.
And I pulled those kind of numbers from.
36 million,
I pulled those numbers from the
36 million.
Association of
At 400,
Architects.
we'll do 5.
Mr. Chair, Chen Ming
Why don't
did
we
tell
do
us
the 250?
what we're looking at here, based on what he's seen, $30 to $40 million was right in the ballpark there, somewhere there. I took it and put it at 50 because there's too many variables out there that may come into play, bonding, construction climate, there's too many, and just, I'd rather be safe than sorry. I don't want to start out saying we're going to do this with 20 million, all of a sudden it's 50 million, because the taxpayers might get a little angry. I'd rather have worst-case scenario and see if we can bring her down from there.
I think that just scares the pants off everybody.
Yeah.
Like,
I
I'd
think
start
worst
at the-
case scenario
I'd
is
start at the
40,000 or 40
250.
million.
I'd start at the 250 and make it 18 million.
No,
and
I
then-
don't. Alan, could you come to the microphone, please? What is standard commercial construction per square foot?
Standard office construction is in the $50 to $70 a square foot range, but a court situation is really completely different. Just because of the finishes, the layout, the size capacity, the HVAC, the technology, it's it's much different, and I couldn't speak to the cost of a court build-out. A general office build-out with mix of offices and cubicles is in the $50 to $60, $70 kind of range, depending on finish qualities.
And that's,
We would have quite a bit of that in that building, too.
Right.
So you're gonna have a mix. You're gonna have a mix of both between courtrooms, offices, chambers. It's a lot different use and a lot different requirements, a lot different code passages, finishes, securities. It's gonna be a lot different, and I don't have that number to present.
I guess I'd be interested in knowing if we did analyze the last 4 court facilities built in this state and how many square foot and what the cost was, and just figure what those 4 were, for example, just
Yeah.
the 4 most recently built.
Yeah,
Well,
that-
Commissioner
And
Potter
what is
had
that
that
number?
information.
What's the,
I think we had that the 250 to 600, it was all over the board. It wasn't,
is that the 4 most recently built?
That is not the
256?
4 most recently built. I had pulled national on that one just to get a good
Yeah,
sampling.
I mean,
So
I don't
state
know,
might
I
be-
don't know if it's some other, state or, New York, city of New York is gonna,
And
I'd like
that
to go
was
look at
city
what that
facilities,
250 and
that
see
was
what it
county
looks like.
facilities. I tried to grab a real wide range, and I think it really depends on the facility you're building, and as Alan mentioned, the finishes.
Well, what was Washington counties?
I don't know
Wasn't
that.
that 500 and some a square foot?
I think those numbers are pretty easily accessible through Wold or through other design
Yeah.
firms that have done those facilities. I think we can grasp that. I just don't think anybody has that particular number today. If I may just add one more note about the discussion on the 1.5 million, I think the direction question that was had about is this a 2 or 3 year or a 4 or 5 year, the immediate needs, I think are going to lead into the discussion about accessibility, and a lot of that 1.5 million was regarding handicap accessibility, building ramps, redoing doorways, that type of thing. So a lot of that cost hinges on the building official approving a leniency to that requirement. So if it's something shorter term, I think, a discussion about that, taking it to the official saying, this is our plan, can we get by with this, or how are you going to work with that? If he says no, then it's going to be a larger amount. So that kind
well,
of
then
leads
we'll
to
take them to our
1.5.
local district court, and we'll argue the merits of this case.
But I think that just explains that variance in number, though, and just helping define that up to 1.5 million encompasses a lot of the handicap stuff. So it's really
Right.
dependent on what the official says.
Yeah, but much of the items that were discussed weren't even changes in the structure of the facility. They
Right.
were literally furnishings.
And
And
I
to think
think-
that we have to change and spend $1 million on handicap accessibility for a building we're only gonna be in for a short period of time, when all we're doing is changing the podium that employees are sitting at is outrageous, and I can't believe any building inspector is gonna require us to do that. And if they
I agree,
do, we'll
Mr.
have
Chair.
to challenge that, in my opinion, but.
Sure.
And Mr. Chair, I agree. I wouldn't believe that they would do that.
Well, Mr. Chair, one thing is for sure, though, looking at the study that Wald did, to give us 5 more years here and take 2.5 years to get to that point and a cost of 13 million, or even the 10-year plan, it's just not worth wasting taxpayer
No,
money here.
it's not.
Well, that's-
So what I would like to see is that we need to get some, and Coordinator Kelly had gotten us some numbers, but I would like to see what the effect would be to the taxpayer if we rolled both the current LEC building and a new courts facility together for a 20-year time frame. The ones we've got now show individual courts on its own, refunding the LEC for a 10-year time frame, which does show us some substantial savings. But I'd like to see what it would be if we rolled that into a 20-year and did it all at once, just to see how that would affect the county taxpayers.
What number did you take for the courts? It looks like you took a number lower than 50 million.
The scenario was based on 50 million on a
Oh, it was
20
based on 50 million.
50 million on a 20-year.
Okay, so it's a lower interest rate than what we're paying for for law enforcement,
Correct.
and
In
that's why the number's lower.
discussions,
Okay.
discussions I had yesterday with bond counsel indicated it was in the 2.4 range.
I just think we
And again, there's many factors, of course, in how we set up these bonds and financing.
and then we can look and say.
I don't know that we can solve that today, but I can certainly get you some additional estimates if that is helpful.
Hey, you're our guy. You know, Bill down and add it up.
Gotta get approval through the courts too, though.
Yeah.
That's it, John.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I would agree with Mark. It'd be interesting to know if you rolled them together and put them all out for a period of 20 or 25 years, what number you'd have there then.
The thing is, Mr. Chair, we're guessing at a pretty big range of what the facility would cost.
Oh, I think you're right. Like I
need
said,
to
the
get
best
some-
way is the research what the last few projects were, and ours isn't gonna deviate much from them. If it cost everybody else, you know.
That or go through the selection, get just and hire an architect. And
Well-
what I would like to do is if we got an architect and they said, here's the last three we did, here's so much a square foot, and then we say, you know, bring the courts with us and go out on a tour and say, hey, this is great, you know, we don't have to do the 500 a square foot. You know, this $300 one is
Well, maybe
very
that's
functional.
when we find out the last four built and see if one's 40% less than the other three. Why is it?
And then go look at them
Yeah.
too. maybe.
And maybe find out what architect built that one also, because
There you
maybe
go.
they have
Okay.
better ideas for keeping things reasonable.
God, you're a smart guy. I
Mr.
like it.
Chair, if I could
You might end up picking the architect that built the most expensive one if you pick the architect first.
Yeah.
Lee?
Just, Mr. Chair, I know Wold has done a couple in the state, and just to point out, we do have some money left in that contract. We had for the feasibility study, would there be an appetite to at least get some of these costs more clearly defined?
I would like Mr. Alan Wilczek, who's a very sharp guy, to find out where the last few projects were in the state and
Go tour them.
and have him give us an analysis on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper on exactly what, how many square feet those facilities were, what the costs were, any other things that stand out. I mean, i.e. this one included a jail, so therefore, you know what I mean? It's swayed, or some things that maybe jump out that make it different than what it ought to be, and just, again, the last few projects that have been done and what the costs were, the square footage, and anything that stands out is why this one was way higher or lower, or why it's different than what ours would be. I think he could do that for us, and he's already on staff here, and then there was no bias either. There's no architect that's, maybe did one of them, and, that's why this one is like that or something,
Mr. Chair, when would you like to see that by? I can certainly do some research and pull
I don't
something
know.
together. Is there a time frame you'd like to see it?
10:30 today?
Either a week or two, I don't know, sometime.
I'd like to see it within a week if at all possible. Keep this thing moving
It
along.
shouldn't take you more, I mean, it shouldn't be more than a few hours, I mean, worth of work involved in that. You gotta find the contact person that can get it to you, but
Exactly, yeah, if I can connect with the right folks to give me the costs.
you might
and-
play
and
telephone
find out.
tag with some people, that might be the longest thing in taking some time to do it,
Also, part of the challenge may be identifying the differences between the facilities and what was special about one or the other, so.
And that's what I point out, I mean, if something's got a jail included with it, well, that's gonna drive up the cost, for
Absolutely.
example, or.
Right.
Sure.
And
Or
Mr.
maybe it's got other stuff that drives down the cost. It's got
Like-
some other component of it that isn't, so.
But they
Yeah,
may have
Mr.
that
Chair,
separated out.
The offices, I mean, certainly the county attorneys and the probation, their office space is gonna be different cost than, the court rooms themselves, and so there will be that balance.
We have the advantage of having generally a big open area up there that, in my opinion, it should be easy to construct to. So somebody's not giving, oh, here's a postage-sized piece of property, make it fit on there, so those challenges don't exist. So, you may find some that are really high, but they had to wedge it in between that building and that building.
Or different soil types. Excavating can cause a lot of different variances as well, so.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
would we be able to start proceeding with working on an RFP to go out for architectural services for a new court building? Because that alone will take some time to get that together.
I suppose theoretically we could.
So that way, at least we can continue moving to show the courts that we are interested in doing something and get things done.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
We did that already. We did an RFP, and we reviewed 6 firms. We interviewed 3 of them, and it was a unanimous consensus that the one that we did pick for this remodeling was the one we felt most comfortable with. I just don't see there needing to go through another RFP process to do the delay, when I believe that we could do something with Wold if Al gets all the prices together, and that we have money sit there, take the next step and move forward on this process, because we've already gone through that step, and just to go through that is kind of redundant.
That was for remodeling.
Yeah,
It
and-
was,
and Mike,
but-
I need to, with all due respect on that position, when I voted for Wold, and I chose Wold, and I very well, if we do something again here in the future, which at some point we, in all likelihood, are going to, I very well may choose Wold again. However, I chose Wold because I liked their experience relative to remodeling facilities and some of the stuff they had done relative to remodeling that I thought would really give them an advantage in what we were doing here. If we're building fresh out there with what we are doing, in the end, you know what, I may pick a different one. And I also, my choice will be, because there was 2 other capable architects in that room, and another one that I was extremely comfortable with, that I actually thought at one point had it, and then Wold took it away from them because some of the projects they had done. Maybe one comes in at a number that would equate to about $5 million, and the other one comes in a number that's 4, and maybe, you know what, they're pretty darn equal, and hey, you know what? If Wold's the 5 and the other one's the 4, I'm maybe gonna probably go with the other one then, you know?
And Mr. Chair, I just wanted to.
So we gotta keep them honest with a bid, and if you don't do that, I think they're gonna cost us more money than if they're competing against somebody again. Charlie?
The other thing I said when we built the new school at Howard Lake Waverly Winston, and I was on the school board and we were selecting, we went to, I guess, maybe 5 or 6 schools that had been recently built. Matter of fact, the one in Caledonia was still under construction. And we went around to these different schools, and when we got to Caledonia, we just said, that's it, right
Well-
there. And then we got the architect
That
that built
yeah,
that school,
exactly.
and he built, and then we knew relatively certain well, I shouldn't say exactly, but very close to what our costs were gonna be. It was, like I said, this one wasn't even finished yet.
But if Alan comes back and shows us 4 different projects, and one of them's $290 a square foot, and the other are $450 plus a square foot, and hey, who's this architect that, and then we go look at the one that
They go
was
look at
$290 a
it. There
square
you
foot, and we
go.
think, this is a beautiful facility, it's
Yep.
$290 a square foot. You know what, that piques my interest in that architect.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
maybe that architect is Wold, and maybe it's somebody else,
Okay.
you know?
Well, I'm fine with that. Again, trying to get after Mr. Chair, I don't want to keep dragging this.
Right.
If we're gonna go architect and get an RFP for the construction of this, a new facility out there, just soon get that process moving quickly instead of 3 months from now, 6 months from now, we're still
And
wrestling with it.
that's why I was thinking, can we start working on an RFP?
Right, the RFP.
I don't
Because I know that won't happen overnight
Right.
either.
Right,
won't
and-
hurt
For an actual building to get it figured out.
But then the only thing, if we did, we did this tour and we came back and
Well, we're still gonna have to bid it out, even if we did find somebody that we liked.
Okay.
We still have to bid it out. Lee, how long do you think something like that would take to do?
An RFP, we'd have to gather some information, but maybe a week or 2.
Yeah, it
Could have
doesn't take
something
long
back to you.
Okay.
It didn't seem like it took long to get the last RFP to get
No, I
the
thought it took a
architect.
little longer than what I expected the last RFP.
But before we go too far into the RFP thing, I'd want to be on the road looking at some recent ones that were built.
Okay, so we do an RFP, so it takes a couple weeks to get that done. And then we bid it out. And how long are we taking there?
To bid it out, at least probably 3 weeks.
Well, how long did it take us to get the RFP and things moving along for the remodel? Do you remember?
On the remodel, I believe it was about 6 weeks, but we did do a pre-bid meeting in there too,
Okay.
which I don't know that we would do in this case.
Yeah, a little different, but, okay, so it took 6 weeks, and then once we got the interviews done and chose somebody, how long of a time frame was that before they started? It was more than 6 weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I recall it being that long, but I'd have to go back and look. I know after we made the selection, we had worked on the next board meeting to get it approved and moving forward. As far as an official start date, I'd have to go back and look from when we approved it.
Request for proposals started January.
Correct, end of January, as I recall. We had the pre-bid at that time.
Here somewhere at the end of February, I recall, before we looked at all the cases here and whittled it down to which ones we wanted to interview. And I think it was a week or two later to interview them. And there was another week or two to pick one. So I think it just keeps.
Well, yeah, I don't think, why don't we give Mr. Wilczek a chance to come back with some numbers for us? We don't even know how much this is gonna cost yet, and we've got a building that we haven't even started paying for, that people haven't even moved into yet, that the taxpayers are gonna be paying for the next 20 million years. I don't think if we wait a couple of weeks to get some actual information, it would hurt anything.
No, I'm not, Mr. Chair, I'm not against that. I just wanted to, the timeframe, we're already into June, middle of June here.
I remember when we built the highway building, there was a consensus among this group that the highway facility was first, and I didn't realize when we made that consensus that literally before we moved in, we were gonna start another one. So I don't think we have to get too shook up here today. I know these folks have some things that aren't perfect, I understand that. It seems as though there's clearly momentum in their favor at this point in time, but I think we've got some information that we can gather before next week that I think will be helpful to us. One is Mr. Wilczek's information, the other is Lee's information relative to what Mark asked about combining those bonds and how that impact would be. I'm really interested in seeing that because depending on how those numbers look, total cost of it, and how those numbers look would depend on whether or not I could be supportive. And I guess I'd like to vote yes or no on things with the information, not have to vote no here today, and maybe, if it's something that I could support in the future, if the facts are different than what I think they may be, so.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Is that something that we want to have bond counsel come in and talk to us about these different scenarios so we
Well,
can get information where we've got a snapshot here?
This is good here. I think what we have is adequate, except that in the format and how Lee did it, it's just that this issue of rolling them together would be nice. And Lee, maybe if you can get Al's information, multiply times the 90,000 square feet and kind of have a better, maybe 50 million is still the number. Maybe after that you decide the number is 39 million. You know what I mean? Then you can do that same thing with them rolled together and we can kind of have.
That is the challenge. I personally would be very surprised if we're at 50. And my thoughts on that is based kind of on what Chang Ming from the National Center said.
So you think the 50 is too high is what you're saying?
I do. I came in as that being worst case scenario was my thought on that.
Well, but when I took the $400 number, which wasn't worst case scenario, it got all the way to 36 just for construction, and then you add soft costs to it and you're not that far from 50. That gets you up to about 45 then. 44, 45.
I agree with you.
Because the $40 million law enforcement center got to 50 with all them other costs.
Really quick.
And somehow or another, the bond was for 53 million I see in here, which kind of surprised me because I don't know how that got there because I thought it was a $50 million deal, so.
Capitalized interest.
So I don't know. I'm hoping you're right, but again, I think after Al does his research, we'll be further ahead.
And Mr. Chair, I want to be clear that the reason why I pushed the 50 out there is because even though Chen Meng from National Court Service says 30 to 40 somewhere in there, I'd rather be safe than sorry because when.
Well, did he say that was the number for construction?
He said the good news is between 30 and 40 million is what he had anticipated. But I just wanted worst case because the jail taught us a lesson that they started out a little lower and.
But in that scenario, then 36 million is the number. But I'm gonna like numbers better after Al does his research because I think he's gonna be able to enlighten us a bit. Judge, yes.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we are certainly supportive of the board getting the information it needs to make an informed, fiscally prudent decision. And we appreciate the board's support in addressing the issues that we have. We do have our chief judge here today, and we are very concerned as a court in terms of our time frame. And we do support you gathering the information that you need. I don't want you to take my comments in any other fashion. But it would be very helpful for the courts to know a time frame in which this information would be gathered and we would make a decision. We don't want to be in September and have these same issues going on. We'd like to know what direction that we're headed. And I will again state, it's clearly the position of the courts. We just need functional space. We don't care where you put us, but we need functional, secure space where individuals that are handicapped can access the space and that we can hold court. We have those 3 very small courtrooms that are very dangerous to hold court in, and we're not going to continue to hold court indefinitely in those 3 small courtrooms. We know that this takes time, though, so we're very appreciative of that. But we would like to proceed on a path that is a reasonable time frame, but have some idea what that time frame is.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think, in all honesty, the reasonable would be 3 years. I think by the time we get the decision made and everything gets drawn out and built, I would think that there's no reason why you couldn't be in a building in 3 years. But to say 2 years, I think that may be pushing it, just by looking at what they had
But Mark,
showed here.
it depends, because if we did, we came back with, here's 6 facilities that were just built in Minnesota in the last 3 or 4 years, and we go to one and say, that's, and I'm just being optimistic, but say that's.
You're being optimistic.
It happened for us, though, at the school.
Yeah, but the schools are, they build more schools than they build courts.
And what we did too, though, we went to schools that were basically the same size, 1,000 student, whatever. That's what we went to those and said, there's the one we want right there. So if we were to do that, the architect basically has the building designed already. We just got to match it up with the LEC. I believe that's what we want to do.
Yeah, but I just don't see that being a realistic option.
It could, though.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Commissioners, the one thing that I'm mindful of is what Wold told us when we had the committee of the whole meeting of, when this process needs to proceed in order to maximize the benefit, if you choose to build, to maximize the benefit of a spring start of building cycle, because they talked to us about how expensive it is to heat the ground for
Right.
footings and things like that. So they did encourage that a decision be made in the next, 1 to 2 months in order to maximize the right building time frame. So if a decision is going to be reached in the next month or 2, the courts is fine with that. And we're not objecting or suggesting you should do anything different. But if it gets beyond that, we're going to miss that cycle, and that's our concern.
Well, then that would put you theoretically at construction beginning in early 18, which gets you done, I presume,
Early
sometime
18? Early 17.
No, if you miss the construction cycle for next spring, you'd start early 18, which would complete the building in sometime in the late 19 calendar frame, I would guess, which puts you around, slightly over 3 years. Around 3 years.
But
slightly
let's
over
not,
3 years.
let's not plan on missing the.
Well, yeah, I don't
Plan
know.
on
Yeah.
missing the construction
And
cycle.
Mr. Chair, I kind of like, Charlie's idea about touring, but I don't know if I would base that decision, because I'm not a judge, and I'm not,
Oh,
I can look at something and say, yeah, I really like that, but maybe the courts have a better well, they do. You have a better concept of what.
Well, they can certainly be in on the tour.
Yeah.
Bring them,
Yeah.
have them.
But
They can be on the tour,
I
but
don't
in
know
the
if
end, it's this board that has to pay
Right.
for it.
Yep.
And take the money out of the taxpayers' pockets, so we'll
Right.
all hopefully like the same building.
Right,
Mr.
yeah.
Chair?
And we are barely looking for functional space. We don't need bells and whistles. We just need functional.
Mr. Potter?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have toured a couple courts, one with Judge Tenney, and I did one while I was doing the AMC road thing down in Freeborn County. Right, Washington County was done by Wold, Freeborn County was done by BKV, and both were fine facilities. I didn't see a problem with it, and I got a full tour of both of them. I've done a little bit of touring already, and as far as the construction season goes on that other point, but if you remember, when we pushed on the highway building, we got that construction season, and I think the timing of it is why we did come in under budget and why things have been flowing fairly well out there. Because it is, especially if you're doing any kind of tip-up construction or that, you need to make sure that it's all enclosed before wintertime, that's how you're gonna get cheaper bids on your different bid packs that you do. So that's, if you refresh your memory, when we did the highway, we did push that to get that started. We ordered the tip-up panels in February from Fabcon, and we got into the queue early enough before the season started, so we actually, the timing was perfect on that. And I think that the judge is trying to see the timing of this construction, again, try to maximize that.
Well, one of the reasons that I want to say that 3 years is so that Wold can continue with what we have charged them with to get the technology part solved for the courts. So we can get that moving along, because we got to do both at the same time. So that's why, you know, let's say 2.5 years. But again, Wold needs to know that information so they can go to the city inspector and say, if we are out of here in 2.5 years, will they allow us to do this, this, and this to
Right.
get a spot?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm trying to come up with something so that we can continue with, Wold can continue with what we've charged them with to get us for this, the 2-year plan option. What, maybe it's 2.5 years. 3 years at the outside. I can't see it being any more than 3 years.
And that's what Wold was proposing, was a 2.5 year.
Okay.
They were saying that that was realistic, with the understanding that it would take a process to get an RFP out, even once you decide that you want to go that route. When we put out the RFP for the remodels, that went out in January. Our kickoff meeting was March 29th. So if you approve an RFP in July, the design phase is not likely to begin till the fall, which still puts us on track to meet the cycle that Wold was discussing. But if we push that figure out a couple of months, then we risk losing the efficacy of the numbers that we even got from the Center for State Courts, because those are 2015 numbers projecting out to 2014. If we don't start until 2019, that's problematic. If we start in 2018, again, we're closer, but
What are these numbers that 2015 projected out to 2014?
2040, 40.
Okay.
That's, we asked them to project
So
that
if we get started
timeframe.
a few months later, how does that impact their study?
It's the years, a few years later. So we projected how many judges we'd need based on the
2040.
population through 2040. The closer you get to 2020, you are losing some of the benefit of the projections that were made. They may not be as true for as long as we had hoped. So, and that's just by virtue of the years. But I think that if we are proceeding down the path of gathering some additional information, we have requested from the National Center for State Courts some sample RFPs, so that would give a jumpstart, not from any construction folks or architectural firms, but from the National Center for State Courts. We can get those, and then during this RFP process, we'd be happy, Commissioner Burrell, to facilitate some tours. We can get those set up whenever you want to go.
So the national state courts would kind of give you some examples of here's what's going up, then we don't even need our guy.
Well, I think our guy's gonna do that. Our guy's gonna find what's went up,
But it wouldn't
and
help.
he's gonna show us that next week.
But if
Yeah,
they
but
have
our
that-
RFPs are something different. That's just,
Okay.
Just to refresh the boards, with Wold at that committee of the whole, when we talked about it, it's basically from the time you start the schematics to the bid docs and everything, you're about 9 months, right in that neighborhood. And it's a 15-month construction cycle for that particular building, just to refresh people's memory on, that's the times we're working on to try to make this work.
Yeah, so that puts us just at about, I think, 2 years.
Because what they had said there is if you started in June, you'd have all the bid docs, everything ready by first part of March.
How long is the construction cycle?
The 15 months of construction.
Okay, so if you started in the beginning of 18, you'd be just dead 3 years from now. 3 years.
okay. So back to, can we at least authorize Wold to continue, and so that we know what that option 3 is gonna cost, you know, for a maximum of 3 years here, 2.5 to 3 years.
No, that's fine, under the current contract. I'm
Under the
fine with
current
them operating
contract.
under
I
the
mean,
current
that,
contract.
just so that
It's
we
fine with me.
can get the courts,
Minimal things absolutely necessary.
so we know what those numbers are gonna be too, because that has an effect too, you know? So, let's get them moving now that they know that within 3 years at the very max, they'll be out of here. And hopefully the state will take them over completely and we won't have to deal with you guys at all.
I thought there was a state takeover. How come this is costing us $50 million and there was a state takeover?
No, I said completely. So, do we need a motion for that to?
Well, did we ever make a motion to stop doing it? Or did we, I think it was just stopped
We just
without any
stopped.
particular motion, was it? There was no motion to
Correct,
stop.
there
or
was no
there a
motion to stop. I personally would appreciate some clear direction and a
Sounds
motion
like
to
you
that
got-
effect.
Mr. Chair, what we did is when, building committee with the judges, we had reached a point where we felt it was to bring the committee the whole together because there was enough information and then getting direction from the committee a whole, how we wanted to go. And that's what's brought us to here today.
Mr. Chair, my thinking on it, if we can get moving on the new building, and I talked about this at the committee of the whole, I think the judges would tough it out, you know, instead of being 3 years, if it's 2 years and we're moving in. Like I said, I think that would be something I wouldn't want to put, like Judge McPherson said, I would put next to nothing in over here, just the bare, whether it's the technology thing, if we can move the technology out there, that's not a bad investment, but if it's gonna be some huge expense there even,
Here, you gotta remodel, but the building's already
they're
there.
not listening to me.
But I think that's a pretty realistic number. Okay. So, I'm gonna make a motion that, we'll proceed again with, getting costs together for, a 2.5 to 3 year plan for the courts being here, so that we have those numbers as soon as possible.
3-year plan.
2.5 to 3 year plan.
Is there a second?
Second, just to get them moving forward.
Okay, second by Potter.
1.5 to 3 and
I don't like, Charlie, I think you push things too fast and you're gonna end up seeing it in the end. Any further discussion?
leaving a little wiggle room going out to 3.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries unanimous. And Al's gonna bring us back information next week? And Lee's gonna bring us back some more information next week too, with tying things together?
And then who's gonna contact Wold? You'll contact Wold to get him?
I certainly can, yes.
Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Is Greg? Okay, were you gonna introduce this other item here then, back from the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board, consent agenda item E that our office put before you is the agreement with the plant demolition to clean up a nuisance property that our office has been involved in civil litigation with for over 4 years. We've reached the point where we are in the abatement process of getting rid of the ordinance violations. Earlier this month, or late last month, this board approved an agreement with Burtis Towing. And on June 2nd, they started removing close to, I think, over 100 vehicles from this property, at least 45 of which are now at our compost facility awaiting a sheriff's sale. The next stage of the demolition or abatement is the demo of all the junk that's remaining on the property. And the proposal that you have is from the plant demolition and their fee structure for doing that. Mr. Dan Gutnick, one of the heirs to the property, is now here, and I guess wanted to discuss it with you.
Okay, Mr. Gutnick, you want to come up and tell us, what you want to tell us?
Chairman and board, yeah, I just need a little time to clean up now. It was a rude awakening. I guess I was in denial, but I have a building permit to build a building here. I put up a fence, and I'm going to be putting pallet racking style similar to like Menards and stuff inside the fence, and range stuff. They just ramshot over everything. There's trees everywhere and everything. I gotta clean that up. They spilled my diesel fuel for my farm diesel, about 100 gallons and stuff.
How did they do that?
Well, they moving stuff around. I had a wood chipper. They just pushed it, rolled it to get access to a vehicle that they wanted to haul out of there with the big payloader.
Who's they?
Curtis Towing and French Lake.
How long have you personally been in control of the property?
My father just passed away this spring here.
Okay.
I mean, I've lived there. I've had cars. I was a Minnesota licensed scrapyard for years. But I didn't keep the license up when I went to work down in the cities. So I've had vehicles for over 40 years. And like I said, it was a wake-up call. I thought I had time to clean it up and get rid of stuff, but I am...
So what was the wake-up call when you showed up and all this stuff was getting pulled out? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a rude awakening, yeah, losing stuff that you had for years. And I'm just asking for a few weeks to reorganize and clean up stuff. And I did make concessions even because I have a 100 by 100 area that I can put stuff. I had buses, and Greg talked me into relinquishing some of those. So I unloaded stuff. I have stuff sitting on the ground with tarps over right now. So, I mean, I don't want to see that stuff go. That's all my inventory from my car shop and stuff, and tools and equipment. I was allowed to keep 5 buses, but they actually took 5 buses.
So you're saying there was 10 and they...
There was 9, and I was allowed to keep 5. They were going to take 4, but they actually took 5. So, I mean, I got stuff that I have to take care of right away. But like I said, I got a permit in hand to build a building. I already obtained that this morning, and I got building materials sitting out and stuff for my fence and for the building here. So I don't want to see that just come in and disappear either.
Dan, what about the mobile home?
I'm working on that. That'll disappear too. Either disassemble it or something.
Well, I know from the attorney's point, they felt like you've been dragging your feet on some of these, because we were here a year ago.
Right.
With this issue, and all these things were spelled out before.
Right.
You told us that you were gonna do some of these things, and some of these things that are listed here are still there. And now you're coming back for a couple more weeks, and we give you 2 more weeks, all of a sudden I need another year, and I empathize with losing your father and the time frame, but this isn't exactly brand new, some of the stuff. And unless that mobile home has a permit that you're actually living in, I mean, it's problematic. And that's the big ticket item right there. I would think that would be the first thing I would get rid of. Some of these other things are fairly small item. I mean, the tires per ton, things like that, but that mobile home that's a big ticket.
They have a lot of tires.
Well, yeah, but they have, it's so much per ton.
How many tires are out there? Thousands?
Waste tires, there's only, most of them are in the corn crib in a building, so, but
Hundreds,
the waste ones, there's probably 100 something.
When was the court ordered?
Mr. Chair, we entered into a consent agreement to clean up this property. Not sure on the date we entered into that, but it's probably close to 3 years ago now, which laid out
That was
some...
when the court ordered?
We started the suit about 4 years ago, about 4 years ago, pretty much to the date now. About a year after that, we entered into a settlement agreement laying out the time frame for doing this. We then brought a contempt action, got the court order to go forward with the bid that we did last summer. That bid ended up being rejected, and then because of the winter, we then gave him until, we entered into another agreement giving him until June 1. We entered into that agreement in about mid-March, April, giving him another 60 days to go in and clean it up on by June 1. So as far as staff is concerned and our office is concerned, this has been going on for 4 years. It's time to clean it up.
Now, you've been on the property this whole time, or this has been your business?
Yes, I was taking care of my dad, doing health care for my dad, and then I was actually disabled for a while myself with my back, and so I mean, it's not an excuse. I mean, it's an explanation of how things didn't get done, and
Who accumulated these things, your dad or you?
me.
Okay. Okay, I was just trying to make sure, okay, so your dad didn't accumulate these things and you just got the property a few months ago and, okay.
No, I've had cars for, like I said, over 40 years in different shops, in different towns.
And Mr. Chair and members of the board, the agreement for the plant's demolition looks rather simple, but this is not a simple job. There's over 7 acres of junk on this property. You think you see it all, and you turn around and you see another pile. And you walk another 50 feet and there's another pile. And then you walk another 50 feet and there's another pile. LaPlante, you can't put this out for bid, I don't think. If we did, you would get rates through the roof because there's no way to explain how much tonnage is out there, how much stuff is actually out there. That's why LaPlante did this on an hourly basis and on a per ton basis, because it's amazing how much. I mean, if you went out there tomorrow at 9 when we start, you'd be amazed at what's out there. And this is after over 100
You planning on
vehicles
starting
have been-
tomorrow morning?
That'd be the goal, if they can get in there. There's a barn that's burned down right now that definitely needs to be removed first and foremost.
So you're saying there's more than one mobile home?
There was one mobile home that needs to be removed, yes.
Because it says
I
mobile
thi-
homes, it's got a
Yeah,
plural.
I think one was removed already by Dan, but there's one right now.
No,
There's
it
a
says
boat that needs
demo
to be
mobile
removed.
home, $3,000.
Homes,
No, on this one it says home,
one home, okay.
and the price
The only
itself.
one.
Well, it says homes and it's per unit, it says
Oh.
here on that, so that just made me think there's more than one.
There were
Maybe he's
two.
afraid he's gonna find another one out there somewhere.
Could happen.
No, there's only the one, and I'll take care of that too. I promise. Like I said, I totally rude awakening and come to my senses, and I gotta get it done. And I've taken steps here to, like I said, to build a shed, get stuff inside, and
How large is this shed?
20 by 60. It's an addition onto another shed I
Okay,
have.
but it won't be constructed for some time.
No, I got the materials to start on it right away.
Have you got the permit?
Yep.
Got a permit.
Permit in hand.
And Mr.
Are
Chair,
you building yourself or you got a contractor?
Myself, and I'll get people to help me. I'll get it done. That's as soon as possible, so I can, like I said, just for them to come out tomorrow is just too soon. I mean, he plans on, he gave me till 8/1 for semi-trailer, so I mean, they'll be coming out then, so if you just give me to 8/1, I'm fine with that. I'll have it cleaned up.
But earlier you said 2 to 3 weeks. So now you're saying longer.
Well, give me something like that. I mean, but I'm trying to consolidate. If he's gonna come out 8/1, he'll be out 8/1. I mean, to check on something. So, I mean, I don't want him to make a special trip. If you wanna give me 2-3 weeks, that's fine. I just need a little time to get
We don't have
stuff-
any photos of, I mean,
oh, I
We've
have
had them
photos.
from
I can
before,
show you
he's
my
got,
phone.
he gave us all kinds of them before.
yeah, no, I remember seeing stuff and it, yeah. Well, that was before the cars were removed though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When we
I
seen
guess
before?
Beacon would probably be the best. I can,
It was the beacon snapshot of everything, wasn't it?
Can you get us up there on Beacon?
You
or
have
no?
it here, I'd have to.
Otherwise,
there,
can you
I
put the
can't.
phone on the Elmo and just put that on the
I
projector?
don't think that would show very well.
not gonna
I don't
show
know.
the best.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Gutnick, you think that by August 1st, you could have this
Yes,
done?
I will have it. Behind my fence, in my area, or in the building, or
It doesn't show up the
And
best
if that
here.
didn't happen,
Lights might.
I would encourage the board to go take a look at this property. I've been hearing these same pleas for more time for 4 years. And at some point in time, there has to be a drop dead date, and that drop dead date was June 1.
Yeah, and we've already taken
I
out a
have-
lot
I
of
have
Our
a
stuff.
office is
roll-off
no longer
dumpster out
negotiating.
there already, and
They got roll-ups out there?
I have one, yeah,
Oh, you do?
yeah.
You have a roll-off truck and a roll-off dumpster?
I have
Or,
a rollback with a roll-off dumpster, yeah,
Oh, your own personal stuff?
yes.
So you've had this all along?
No, just obtained it so I can clean up. My intention is to clean up and get rid of stuff, so purge.
Dan, I've known you a long time, and one of the problems is, it was a year ago when you came here and made promises to us that you were gonna get that, and that's been problematic for the attorneys and everybody else around here. So you told us a year ago that you're gonna get right on it, this stuff's gonna get done.
Yeah.
And here we are a year later, and we're still here, and that's problematic, because it's how much time do I spend with this gentleman and that office before something happens? Now you're,
I was in denial, I guess. I'm, like I said, but it's total wake up. I'm raring to go. I mean,
What, is scrap metal got value right now?
it's up a little bit, but still not worth what it was, but it's better than what it was 6 months ago.
And 2 years ago, you would've been making money hand over fist.
Yeah. Right.
So what is it per ton right now?
I think Skip told me when he was out there working, he thought it was around $90 a ton.
Okay, what's all-time high, like 200?
I didn't think it's $90.
Someone mentioned 90 when we were out there. They thought.
Well, I guess it depends on the type of metal.
Yeah, except if it's prepared or
Yeah,
just
prepared
tin or.
versus
Yeah,
just
well, it's
general.
not, I mean, most of your stuff's not gonna be considered prepared, right?
Right, it'll just be throwing it
Yeah.
in and getting rid of it.
Yeah, and that's like around,
So it'll
I
be,
thought that was like around 35 or 40 bucks a ton.
And LaPlante isn't gonna be separating out the metal. It costs too
No,
much. At the
it's
end of
just
it,
gonna be-
it's gone and it goes to the landfill.
Landfill?
Yeah, this is, what's left is junk.
Well, it's, but
7
it,
acres of junk.
but it's, but it's
building
most,
material.
but if it's steel, it would go to,
I don't, LaPlante indicated that if they did that, it would cost more than the recycling that they'd get back in labor. The labor cost would exceed the value you'd get back.
And where are the
Right,
tires
separate.
gonna go?
What's that?
Where are all the tires are gonna go?
They'll be disposed of properly by LaPlante. There are piles of tires out there.
there's only one pile.
just theoretically, I'm not suggesting we do this, but theoretically, if we were to back off of our action that we took earlier and give him some time and literally say, okay, we expect by next week that, I mean, every single tire is, even set some certain things, if this isn't done by that, could we back off of this and immediately implement it again, Greg, or?
I've been doing it for 4 years.
Okay.
Truly. Nothing happens until the last minute. He came to me, Mr. Gutnick came to me on the night before the morning before Berta's was gonna be there and asked me for another week. And I got out there, and he said he was gonna have it done. He could get it done in a week. It took Berta's well over 3 solid days of working with 5 semis to get those cars out of there, and over 3 to 4 days of working. He couldn't have done it in a week. There were over 100 vehicles. With all due respect to Mr. Gutnick, I think he has the best intentions, but after 4 years, enough is enough on our end.
Mr. Chair, I guess I have a question. So Greg, when LaPlante comes out, let's say it's tomorrow, will he, let's say he's got a wood chipper and stuff, is LaPlante gonna haul everything out, or is it gonna be junk, kind of junk?
I want them to get rid of the barn that's burned down, anything that's in that barn that's ash. It can't be
And
used anyhow.
he wouldn't take like the wood chipper and things like
No.
that are, okay.
I'm not taking a wood chipper.
And I guess, Mr. Gutnick, my thing is, I actually don't think these rates are that bad. I don't think LaPlante is out of line on this. I don't think, okay, you wouldn't be able to do this. I don't know anybody that's superhuman enough to get this all cleaned up by themselves. You're gonna end up hiring somebody, and I said, I'm just looking at this, $45 an hour for an employee to be out there, that's not unreasonable. And he's got the equipment here that's gonna keep those hours down. I just think you're probably gonna be better off just having him do that, but I think
I like to recycle a lot, excuse me.
yeah, well,
Okay, let's talk about the burned down barn.
Okay,
Is there anything in that barn that is of any value?
I had engine parts, I have to sort through the engine parts from the fire, but otherwise, the rest will be just, there's scrap wood and the stanchions and stuff. Some rims, because I did have tires stored in there, inside the barn,
After the fire, before the fire or after the fire?
before the fire.
So chances are those are all pretty much junk.
Right, that's all junk, but I mean, yeah, there's scrap in there.
Scrap metal.
But how dangerous is it for you to go in and get that metal out of there if this building is burned down?
Oh, it's not, it's leveled. I mean, it's not dangerous going in there.
See, I think that the scrap metal is really not worth that much. You just need to get the stuff out of there.
But there's a lot of stuff sitting around. I mean, I got some old milk cans and stuff sitting out. I mean, there's stuff, it's a farm, so I mean, there's steel that I use to structurally weld on stuff and, you know, pipes and stuff. So I mean, somebody's gonna be calling it scrap and.
You have family
refuge,
members?
But it's good. I mean,
You have family members that are gonna help you do this?
yes. I have family and cousins that are helping me. Friends, calling in favors all I can.
Did the fenced-in area, is it done yet, or is it just one wall?
It's just one wall. It's,
Well, but why didn't you have your friends and relatives out there and put the other 3 walls up so you could put stuff in there? Because Greg did give you that option, a 100 by
right, well,
100 fence.
it'll get done. He gave me a little
Gave
time
them
to
that
do it.
option 3 years ago. It got done last Saturday.
But I mean, that option was there a week ago and 2 weeks ago too, and it's still not
Now I've
done.
been just cleaning out those buses and dealing with that stuff for the last week. So I mean, because yeah, I consented to letting buses go, but I had to empty them and get my equipment and stuff out of there. So I've been working on that for the last week.
But again, where are your cousins and where are your friends? This stuff should be, like, the guy came in and hauled all the cars out in 3 days, okay? How long would it have taken you to do that,
That's realistic, 6 weeks.
you know?
Yeah, right.
Even with you and your
Like I
friends.
said,
You
I
need-
was in denial
but I'm
about the
saying
cars.
you need to hire somebody to come in with the semis, with the equipment, to do that.
Right.
You can't do it
Did you get
yourself.
that? You got that, so you can put it up on the screen?
I could go over there and do it. I
But
can't do
I
it
don't
from
think-
here.
look,
But
that's
it's not
reasonable with their rates,
it's
and
not the most current one is the problem.
Yeah, that picture is probably like 3 or 4 years old.
No, it'd be about a year old.
Because it's
Before
got
the
a
cars
burn
were
spot
moved?
from
Before the
2013.
cars were moved, I assume?
All the cars.
When it was, I don't know when it was issued to you guys, but when it was taken, it has a burn spot that's from 2013. Because I was cleaning up and the torches lit the grass on fire.
on? Where is this at exactly?
The property.
Township,
Where?
right off the township building, just down.
You wanna,
You gonna zoom in on it?
zoom in on it a little bit more, please?
Buffalo Town Hall is out by.
Near the Buffalo Town Hall?
Mhm.
Well, it's probably not too far from.
So all
the
those
solar
cars are
field.
gone now for the
All
most
the
part?
cars are
No,
gone.
in fact, it'd be, as a crow flies, just
Kind of just showing you what it looks like here. You scroll down. So, all those cars are now gone.
Now, where's your fence at?
Joe Coolin lives
The
on.
fence is right
Not too
about this area where the cursor is. It's got one wall right about there.
Oh, just a small area then.
Yep. He was allowed under the court order to have a 100 by 100 foot area of the fence.
Now, where are the neighbors at?
Closest neighbors,
Just expanded out there, yeah.
right here.
We're kind of,
And they're looking at all the junk that's been piled up over here. And you can see a lot of it from the township road. The township's been dealing with, I've been dealing with this property for 4 years. The township's been dealing with for probably close to 20.
So there's been letters being sent from planning and zoning for nearly 20 years?
It started with the township. I think they tried working with them for probably close to 10 years. Planning and zoning, we tried civil action or criminal action before we did civil, and nothing seemed to work, so had to go civil 4 years ago. And now we're at the end stage. Everyone throughout this entire process has encouraged Dan to take this on his own, which is why it's taken 4 years. Our office, this was the last resort that our office wanted to do. I begged and I pleaded with Dan to call someone up and clean up this property and get the scrap metal. I begged and I pleaded for 4 years. Please just get it done. He wouldn't do it, he wouldn't do it, he wouldn't do it, so we're left with Berta's Towing pulling it out with French Lake Auto. And now I'm at the point where LaPlante comes in. 'Cause after 4 years, there's nothing left for government to do. When you don't take action on your own to clean up this kind of an abatement nuisance, on your property. There's nothing left for us to do. And frankly, 4 years, I think, is enough delay. Another 2 weeks isn't going to do anything. We're going to be right back here doing the same thing again.
Well, unless you hired LaPlante to do it. I mean, and I guess it's gonna come out the same as long, the only thing that would concern me is if LaPlante went in there and started throwing good things away, a tire changer and stuff like that. I mean, but you said they're not gonna do that. They're gonna be clearing junk.
There's something out there, it's been exposed to the elements for probably close to 10 to 15 to 20 years. Chances are it's rusted through.
Yeah, but unfortunately, there are some of those things that you would be surprised and people are gonna pay good money for. But on some of those older farm implements and stuff. He got a wake-up call. He seems sincere. I'll give you 2 weeks. I'll make a motion to allow you 2 more weeks. And if, and you're gonna have to work day and night for 2 weeks to get it.
I already have been,
Done.
but I will, I promise.
I think you need to hire LaPlante and.
Well, he's gonna have to hire somebody, so, I mean,
I don't think you're gonna get
it would
any
be
better-
cheaper for you to hire somebody and get it done than it would be for us to hire somebody and then put it back on your taxes and charge everything. We're already gonna have quite a bit on your taxes, so I'll give you 2 weeks. I'll make a motion to allow him 2 more weeks, and I'll have to deal with Greg beating me up later on.
Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Dwyden to provide 2 weeks. So when you're saying 2 weeks, is that to have the entire property cleaned up?
Yeah, but Pat, he's gonna have to do that. He's gonna have to hire somebody to do it.
Well, I'm just asking Mark what he means by 2 weeks.
That's what I was getting at.
Are you substantial progress? What are you?
Substantial progress. Tires gone.
And then what?
Yeah.
Then we go in and do it on the 29th?
If he,
Substantial progress means what?
Done.
Well, let's get the motion here. What is, more specifically, what does it mean? Are you defining it?
2 weeks, all the tires are gone, and the barn is gone. The trailer is gone. And then, hopefully in those 2 weeks, he's gonna have all that metal put away or hauled off so that he can actually make a little bit of money off of it. So,
Okay, then after 2 weeks, then he's not done after 2 weeks, and he's gonna,
LaPlante comes in.
well, if he's done all them things in 2 weeks, then basically 2 weeks from now, this board will readdress this
Well,
and
the board
and
will
give him
readdress
another
it.
deadline to,
yeah, I'm gonna go out and see the property, I'm gonna take some pictures, and we will compare what it looks like today and in 2 weeks. But again, I'm only one motion maker. and
okay,
it's
so
still gonna
there's a
be
motion.
by the
Is there a
board.
second to that motion?
Mr. Chair, I think realistically, 6 weeks to clean the property, and if it's not done, we're done.
But we got 2 weeks to see substantial
Right.
progress here, and Mark has defined what substantial progress is. Is there a second to that motion?
Well, if you amend it to say 2 weeks to see substantial progress.
And 6
and
weeks to have it
total-
done.
6 weeks, it's totally done. Would you go with that?
She's already saying that it has been 6 weeks.
No, you're saying, Chris, you
I'm
say
just- I
6 weeks and it's totally done.
Well, Charlie, you want to second
Okay,
it with
if
that
If you
premise?
do, you want to put that on?
Sure.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay.
Greg's done with this in 7 weeks.
I know, we'll be out there with a plant demo in 7 weeks.
Yeah.
I can guarantee that.
Yeah, I think
Nothing's
you're
gonna
right.
happen.
Okay,
I've
so
dealt
2
with this
weeks.
for 4 years.
Yep.
2 weeks to
And if there's not
All
substantial
the
progress,
tires,
but
all the trailers, the
barn.
burned down barn, and that some of those metals are gonna have to be gone too, because you're gonna wanna move those and throw those in your haul off, in order to make a little bit of money off of it, but
okay.
so if
You have
there's
2
not-
weeks to remove all the tires,
all the tires, there's no
the
tires
mobile
left.
home, and clean up the burned out barn as a bare minimum. And if those things aren't done 2 weeks from now, the board is hiring, at least if this motion passes, LaPlante immediately. And then after that point in time, if that's done by then, we will give you 4 more weeks to clean up the entirety of the property. And if it's not done by then, if this motion passes, then LaPlante would come in and do it the next day.
Right.
Now, Do you think that you can accomplish that?
Yes. I will.
You can accomplish that, okay? Mr. Lydon himself is gonna go out and take photos today.
All right?
Is that correct?
I'll go with him.
I'll go with too.
'Cause it's a bad condition on this property. I can't.
You know what,
I can't
I'm gonna drive by there myself on my way home to Monticello today, so,
Fortunately, the drive-by doesn't get you the whole thing.
okay,
It's bad. It goes 7 acres back.
well, I can see that, it's deep
Yeah,
back there.
It's deep back.
So we can stop in and just, on your way home, we can go out there then, unless Mark leaves earlier.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second, is there discussion on that?
Mr. Chair, I would just say, do we need to have that on the record if, say, the majority of the board went out there for public?
Well, we're not
We
gonna
won't go out, we won't go out
together.
there all necessarily at the same time, and if we did, there wouldn't be any talking going on, how does
Right.
that sound? But
Yeah.
okay, Greg, just, from a legal standpoint, if this passes, and 2 weeks from now, he hasn't accomplished what he's indicated that the motion is and that he's capable of doing, have we in any way jeopardized our ability to keep right on moving and implement? Okay, so we can do it right then and there.
Inevitable, that's all we're doing.
Okay, no, but that's fine, I just don't want us to have to start over or nothing like that, we can literally that day.
He is permanently enjoined from having any more violations on any of the Wright County zoning ordinance on his property.
Okay, by a judge.
By a judge. He has a
And
permanent
what judge
injunction on
was
his
that?
property. Judge Halsey signed it.
Okay, Mr. Halsey, that was good, because some judges don't have the guts to ever make a decision at the end, so
And I
that was
think
good.
Judge Halsey's at his wit's end on this property
Okay.
too, after 4 years. Everyone is.
Okay, Mr. Gutnick,
Yeah, my biggest concern
We didn't
is,
vote yet.
yep, I understand.
my biggest concern is that once we do all this, that we're gonna own that property. And I
Well-
don't wanna see that happen, with all the money that we're gonna pay. And well, how much do we already owe verdicts?
I haven't received the final
Berta's.
bill from Berta's. I would guess it's going to be upwards of 20 grand. At least.
Well, I think you raise a good point, and I don't want to own Mr. Gutnick's property, I want Mr. Gutnick to own it.
Yep.
Appreciate
And,
that.
you're right, if the assessment's high enough, we very well could, and, even though he has not been a good tenant of his property for the last number of years, I would still prefer that he have it, and,
So you got
Correct this.
you got 2 weeks.
Appreciate
You
it.
better call in every favor, you better call old girlfriends.
I think you're gonna have to hire somebody. There's no
Well-
way you're gonna be able to do that.
But it would still be cheaper for him to hire than for us to do it, but
Yep.
hopefully you
Yep,
have some
okay,
funds
any
to be
further
able to do it.
discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. I think this is your last opportunity.
I'll be putting this on the agenda on the 28th.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
And
Be out there
I,
the 29th. I
And
think.
Greg, I think we all agree that your efforts we appreciate very much,
Yes.
and
yeah, and I will be the one to make the motion to
Yeah.
have the plant go in there if it's not done.
you will
I'll
be the
second
crow
it
eater.
just to get back
You will be the eater
on
of
your
the
good
crow.
side.
Greg will,
4 years,
Greg will
I-
supply it up to you.
Yep, he
After
will.
4 years, I'm not buying the Powerball ticket either, so, you know.
Please prove, Mr. Kreiser wrong.
And
Please
then
do
I'll buy
that.
the Powerball ticket and I'll get lucky.
Miracles
I'm
can
putting
happen,
faith- I'm putting
but
faith in you.
not after 4 years.
Thank you.
Greg, thank you. If he cleans it up, whatever happens here, it's gonna get cleaned up, so thank you for your efforts to get it cleaned up, whether he does it himself now, or whether LaPlante does it in 2 or 6 weeks, but,
You wanna take
We'll be out
bets?
there again.
What kind of odds will you give us if we bet?
I wouldn't bet on him cleaning it up.
Okay, no, but I said if we bet
Well-
on cleaned up and you bet not, what kind of odds will you give us? I want 10 to 1.
things, one, we're still on camera,
'Cause I have to-
and two, you know, this is the first time, when they came out and removed the cars, he finally does realize now that after being sent letters for 10 or 20 years, that something is gonna happen, so maybe this time it will get a different response. I sure hope so, because
I
you're
hope
right,
so,
Mark,
but
that
after 4 years,
Could be
I'm,
so high, it could be ours.
yeah.
But 2 more weeks,
We'll be out there.
and then it'll be over for you, one way or the other.
I hope so. Then I still have to sell 45 cars that are
Yeah,
in the
make
hangar.
sure you tell,
When is
Mr.
that?
LaPlante that he that he won't be out there tomorrow if you haven't told him
I'll
yet.
tell
but-
him.
It's that auction,
It's
are
not
those will be
scheduled yet.
sold at our coming
I have to
auction?
still get titled to 45 vehicles, and then we have to post it and sell it.
Oh,
be
so
a
they won't be able to go on our existing, or our current auction?
No, different sale.
And what was the bill to do that?
I haven't received the final bill, but I'm guessing in excess of 20 to 30 grand.
And what is the belief of what the cars will get on auction? Few thousand?
If we're lucky.
Mhm.
I'm guessing at least half to three-fourths of them will probably end up at a landfill. I don't think they'll be.
Well,
bids
not
on
a
them.
landfill,
Or not,
they'll
or at
go
a
to scrap, but
scrapyard.
even at
Scrapyard.
that, they must be worth, what, 150 bucks or so a piece?
Couple hundred apiece, I would
For
think.
scrap?
No.
150.
Well, someone's got to haul them there. I mean, not as much as if if you drove it to the scrapyard, but
I'd be willing to bet that if you get 100, you're gonna be lucky.
100 apiece.
About a year ago, I got
How many did you say there
200
were?
for my daughter.
At least 45 when they
years
counted
ago.
on.
Well, yeah, but there's 50 of them, so that's $5,000 right there at 100 bucks a piece.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
should
I
be able to
mean-
get 100 bucks for them. Well, if we hauled them
Okay.
there, but, yeah, we may not get that for that, but.
But at
they're-
auction,
They're not worth much
at
at
auction,
all.
they go to the highest bidder. They could go for $1.
Yep.
Yeah, well, no, how are we getting the word out? Are we letting the scrap, are we telling French Lake Auto these cars are going up for auction? Are we telling these different places?
We'll publish it, and I'll send it over to the scrapyards, because.
Well, I think you need to find 3-4 scrapyards to send a letter to.
You hauled some away already to,
Mr. Gutnick agreed that some of them could go right directly over to French Lake Auto.
oh, he did?
Yes.
And what did he get for those?
I don't know. They were
Money
gonna,
was paid to Mr. Gutnick?
money was gonna be paid to Berta's as a credit
Okay.
on the ultimate invoice.
So when did all this happen?
It started on the 2nd of June. They worked, on the 2nd, they started at 9 in the morning, and I believe worked until about 10:30. On Friday, then the 3rd, they worked probably starting, I think, at 7 in the morning until about 2 in the afternoon when it started raining heavily. And then they came back the following Monday and finished up probably in about
Well,
another 6 hours.
just, like I said, this is fresh, maybe he'll do this now. He's fresh on the heels of having someone actually come out and start removing that stuff and.
Well, not only that, but if he got some credit for what it costs for the scrap, hopefully he's been in contact with them so he knows how much money he just blew.
My point is,
By not
he
doing it
can't
himself
do
and
by
just getting it
himself.
there.
No, he won't be able to do it by himself.
But the cars are all gone.
The number of cars he had, Charlie, he could have bought an old tow truck if he doesn't already had one and just haul them back and forth all day himself. And every time you get there, they give you a $150 check. I mean, it costs you maybe $10 in gas
But I
to
bet- I
drive back
bet-
and forth.
But I
and-
bet every one of them have flat tires, and you'd have to be changing the tire. It's just a time-consuming
Yeah,
process.
but you could do 3-4, you could still do 3-4 a day.
But he could have hired somebody with a semi to come
I'm
in
just-
and
I'm just
load 'em
saying,
up
I
and
mean,
haul
if-
'em off and make the money. So.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, oh, geez, Mark leaves right when it's his time to take the,
We could probably move to B.
yeah, reschedule 7-5 committee of the whole meeting. That's the one that we wrote, or, is that the one what, 7-5? What did we have
Planning.
scheduled for Friday this week in Pencil?
We had talked
Yeah,
about doing
I
a
saw that
committee of the
too.
whole for the audit exit. The state auditors are not gonna be able to make that
Okay.
So
Friday
that's not
work.
gonna happen.
So is that just gonna be me at 1 o'clock with you guys
So we're
then?
gonna have a meeting with staff and then probably do a follow-up committee of the whole sometime in the future.
Okay, so we can erase that one. And then this 7-5 meeting,
I'd scheduled that meeting at the last board meeting to discuss kind of the follow-up on our strategic plans. That date and time is the leadership committee meeting, the quarterly with the board. So we have the conflict there. So I guess we can entertain possibly later that day or go back another week to the 12th would also be an option.
Go to the 12th. Go to the 12th on that?
That'd work for me.
Sure.
12th at
12?
What time?
10:30?
10:30?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to set the committee of the whole meeting for strategic planning for July 12th at 10:30.
Second.
Motion by Potter, second by Houston. Any further discussion? There's a motion and a second on a meeting July 12th at 10:30. It's a Tuesday. I assume that would work for you since, right?
Yep.
You're here on Tuesday already? And then you can scratch off the one on the 5th at 10:30. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries unanimous.
What was that again? What was that for?
12th, 10:30, committee of the whole, is that the?
Exit?
No.
That's different.
Strategic planning.
Plan. There is no meeting this Friday for exits either, just so you know. We had ones maybe tentative for this Friday, you can cross that off. And then you got the building committee to
Did
report
we
on.
vote on this one yet?
Oh, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries unanimous.
Oh, I had it here a second ago. There it is. Okay, building committee met on June 8th. Members present were Swatsky, Delyden, and Kelly. Also present was Wilczek and Job. Number of items, annex restroom. Wilczek provided updates on the project status. He'd gotten pricing from another architect, from Nelson Architect, and the recommendation was Delyden and Swatsky recommended moving forward with Nelson to create construction documents. After documents are complete, the recommended intent to be to obtain hard bids from contractors for discussion on either moving forward or placing a hold on the project depending on the bids. The initial, when HCM had done it originally, they had told us about 256,000. So hopefully that once we get the drawings done and real bids, it'll be a lot less than that.
What was the rationale for that again? What was the big expense associated with that? Because, I mean, we know you can build a house for that kind of money.
Well, they had done all the engineering and for all the piping and electrical, which is very little electrical. So they had engineered all that sort of stuff. They had all sorts of contingencies in there.
They had a lot of contingencies, I recall, a lot of them.
A lot of them. So we're hoping that it'll be a little more reasonable. IT expansion was just an update. Ernst has already been demoing the old space, and Loberg Electric was beginning to work on the wiring. One of the things we did approve was the removal of the roll-up window and one hallway door. That will be unnecessary with the new configuration of the space. Elevator repairs, we proposed Wilczek provided a proposal from Thurston Krupp Elevators to compare with MEI for the upgrade of the courts elevator. Low urgency for the work was discussed, and additional required work in the machine room was pointed out in the event that the upgrade took place. Dowlight and Swatsky recommended to not do the project at this time or revisit the project at a later date. With the courts, there's no reason to mess with it at this point until we figure out exactly what's going to happen up there. Public Works deferred maintenance and remodel. Wilczek provided info on a proposal from Nelson to analyze the public workspace and create construction documents for the plan modifications. Discussion was taking place along the extension office moving to the site and future space needs of the three departments. Also discussed was if the site was a good fit for extension and what level of collaboration they might have with parks. Wilczek also presented a proposal from Roof Spec to analyze the current roof condition, design a new system, and oversee the replacement project. Also discussed were the windows and frost condensation that occurred on the interior frames. It was recommended by Swatsky and Dowling to discuss a full building envelope review with the contractor instead of only the roof condition to help determine the cause of the window condensation issues. Wilczek will discuss with companies to determine the scope of that service. It was recommended at a minimum to move forward with the assessment of the roof condition for development of a new system design. Also recommended was to move forward with the interior design of the space and construction drawings with Nelson. Did we have current pricing on any of that yet?
I do not know. I do not have that info with me.
Wilczek, when I talked to Alan yesterday, he didn't think it was going to happen.
That was my last update as well, so.
And you're talking about from the place, the roof tech place?
The roof tech and then another one. So it will be going back, so that last item will actually end up going back to building committee next week.
So there's
I'll
the,
make a motion to approve the minutes and the recommendations.
is there a second?
Second.
Second, motion by Dwight, second by Burrell. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries unanimous. Charlie, wild parsnip.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, on the way back from Litchfield yesterday, we just saw a lot of wild parsnip, and Meeker County is terrible, we know that. But we even ran into,
Oh, it was terrible there, unbelievable.
It's
It's like they're out there planting it, there's so much of it.
They won't even argue that, you know. But when you hit into Wright County, even though it's still visible on Highway 12, and actually there was a little bit of it right by the viaduct in Cokato, a little
Now,
patch.
Highway 12, we don't spray that, that's the state's issue,
Yeah,
right?
but that's what I guess we need to figure out.
Well, it's,
Because it keeps
Some
spreading.
was in the right of way, some might have been outside of the right of way. I mean, it needs,
But do we-
I don't know. if the
do
state
we-
takes care of that.
did you
Do we
contact
have
our
Eric?
weed inspector?
Well, that's what I was saying. Do we bring Eric in and find out what we can do? Whether it's getting a letter to the state, to the highway department or what?
Is there a state law against wild parsnip?
It is on the.
It's an invasive.
Are you sure it was added? Because it was, a few years ago, it wasn't on there, Charlie.
No, I think it is now.
It was recent.
You think it was
But
added
even if
recently,
it's-
Mike, or?
I believe
I
they
don't
had
know, it
talks
might have
about
been.
it.
Even
Because
if
at one
it's-
point, when it first started here, it wasn't on the list.
Right. I think it has been added, but even if it wasn't on the list, we want to get this stuff under control, you know, so. And
Well, so I mean, what is the procedure right now then? I mean, at one point, was Soil and Water actually doing some of the spraying themselves?
yeah, and they did. I mean, last year before, they go out in the pickup and spray, but, yeah, but maybe we have.
Oh, we just get
maybe
Soil and Water out there to spray it? I don't know that,
Well, that, or maybe we bring them in and have Eric and them come in and meet with us to find out what is the strategy. I mean, I've proved that it can be taken care of. And it was really thick around our farm and on the 70th Street in Emerson. And I said, now, there was one plant that we found all year this year. So, I mean, it is, if you
just
stick
takes
with it, you can get it, you know, I think eventually it'll get eliminated, but for sure it can be controlled, you know.
well, we'll never eliminate it here because it will always keep coming in from Meeker County if they don't do something.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just kind of see it. They had it terribly, then it just kind of, in Wright County, because it was obviously right next to Meeker, it was still there. And then after about maybe being a half mile in Wright County, then it went down drastically.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But we still seen some
Still-
pockets, but it was substantially,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe only 10% of what they
And
had
then,
over in
and
Meeker.
then, east of Howard Lake on 12, there was quite a bit of it in that area too, so.
But right between 12 and the railroad tracks, right along that
Yep,
whole
and
area
on the
there.
south side too, yeah.
Bring these areas to
So, you know,
weed inspectors.
It's up to you guys too, I mean, but I'm just thinking, do
Well,
we,
I would think we let Eric aware of it, the weed inspector, and that he do his job and get the letter sent out to the residents that own the property and the state.
should we have Carrie here next week and ask Eric to be here too and just ask
Yeah.
Carrie? I mean, just remind us, where are we at with, what is the process right now? Who's supposed to be taking care of that? And in 12, is that something
and
that,
I know Carrie mentioned we'll never win the battle, but I'm not convinced that that's the case.
well, I think he's right if we're the only ones, if the counties next to us aren't fighting it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How can we win? It will just migrate over.
I don't think it really, the seed blows a lot, though. I think it just falls to the ground, but.
Well,
But the
when
birds carry it around.
Yeah.
Birds, the
It ain't
wind.
gonna- It's still gonna move.
And our highway guys have been out spraying. That came up at our meeting last week.
Yeah.
Lee, do you want to invite Carrie here next meeting?
I could do that if you'd like.
Also,
Eric, too.
Eric?
That's all I have.
Okay, advisory committee, Chris, anything?
We had our Public Works Labor Management meeting last week, and our highway department will not be at the county fair this year due to being down a little bit on staff and the fact that we've got 8 active construction projects and they're moving into the new facility, so they just had to make the decision. And as I just mentioned, they are hopefully getting the parsnip under control. They've been out spraying, so. And the other thing, the Region 3 Leadership and Planning Board met with the Workforce Center, and with the 2014 Workforce Innovation and, Opportunity Act that was passed at the federal level, we had to get regional planning areas to qualify for federal funding. And our 11 county workforce region has partnered with, because of the governor determination, with Stearns and Benton to be kind of a planning group together. We don't have to have the programs together and do everything together, but just to do strategic planning. And so that's been in the works to form this joint powers and workforce development boards, and kind of more to come on that. But it's essentially just to improve efficiencies and to get the employers involved in that too, and for training and education, support services, just to increase some efficiencies. So anyway, yep, just to be real brief on that with interest of time.
Right?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week I was out in Washington DC with the Transportation Alliance, who we are a member of, to talk with congressmen and various leaders on the FAST Act and everything and how it affects us. We do have 3 freight corridors here, 94, 55, and 12 currently. Highway 25 is going to be included in that freight corridor. That's going to be adjusted there.
Good.
I did get to meet with Congressman Bill Schuster, the chair of the House Transportation Policy Committee, and we had a little chat about different things and about the FAST Act, mostly in freight corridor, and how that can affect us and what can we do to be more recognized. There'll be more meetings to come on that. In fact, today at 1 o'clock there is a bonding hearing down St. Paul that will be part of transportation, not the whole transportation package, but some of the bonding elements within that. It was productive. You know, it's the first time I went out there that kind of leery, wavering whether it was really worth it or not. Last year did make a lot of accomplishments. This year I feel we've made more progress and more to come. Hopefully we can push, the feds aren't our problem, it's our state legislators that are our problem, getting the money for here to get these projects moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So, a few of us were at the AMC meeting yesterday, which kind of had some interesting topics on there. I won't go in there because most of us were there, but the other thing, Charlie and I had a solar meeting last Friday, and the more you learn about solar, the more you realize how little we knew before.
Yep.
Put it that way. That's why I was mentioning earlier here that some of these counties say that they just got an ordinance, and if you want to see our ordinance, and I'm thinking to myself, if you haven't actually had a solar field yet, you didn't know what to even put in your ordinance, because
Right.
I think we're doing a lot better this go around, but talked about connecting the solar field to the substation and how to do that. And one thing we never realized, but was made perfectly clear yesterday, and to do this now, because all these things, these 5 megawatt things can only be 1 megawatt separate things by state law. So, and each megawatt has to have 3 poles, so there's actually gonna be 15 plus 1, 16 power poles right on every single one of these, right at the head of this. Now, you can avoid that by kind of having them do something that costs a little more money, and that's what we're gonna require in our ordinance, and then it's
Right.
more at ground level, and it's
ground
more
level,
like
and there's different
these
switches.
boxes, more switch boxes, but, so that's something that nobody was ever aware of. So when people get concerned about poles, and I don't know if any of the ones that did any of them get approved, Charlie, that are gonna have that? We might have 1 or 2 in this county that beat that.
The one in Monticello was going to be poles, and the solar company guy himself was saying he doesn't like it, he'd rather go with well, he came back about a week later, actually, at a meeting here, and he told me after the meeting, he says, we got with XL, and it's all gonna be ground level.
But I don't know how this one's, well, of course, they won't have so many at the.
This is a different one.
Yeah, the one
It
out in
shouldn't have
Buffalo.
no 15 poles there.
No, that's
Probably, it might have 3 though.
Right, but
It
that's
might have
not
3
part-
right on site.
That's
big
not
poles right
part
on
of the
site there.
solar garden project, that's a.
And we did get a chance to talk with the gal from XL, although, but we kind of told her that a letter was going to be forthcoming from the county. So I think we should still send that letter.
Uh-oh.
But,
What did Dan do now?
But we should still send that letter to Excel, but we kind of made it clear to Excel that we're not happy with how things panned out there. Now, the one thing is, they were gonna take down that smaller row of power poles. So, that, at least there's not gonna be two there. They indicated that they are at the edge of the right of way where they put the new ones. We can't believe it.
I don't believe it, no.
They said that that's at the edge of the right of way, that's where they're supposed to be.
And how come their other ones are in?
Well, they said the other
on
ones were
private
actually on private property and
I
had
don't
an easement by use, and that's why they were allowed to be there, is what they said. So we asked them about, how about this, do you think you can go put the new ones back where the old ones were? And maybe the property owner would like that better anyhow, maybe they would be agreeable to doing that. They said to do it, there'd have to be trees coming down and that sort of thing, so they're gonna look into how, if they can move them back further, and how that would impact trees, because we don't wanna like cut down a bunch of mature trees now to move them back and.
What about underground, which is what?
Well, it sounds like the price of that is pretty astronomical. Is what it sounds like, but anyhow, I feel comfortable that the Excel gal is gonna be, communicating, or looking and seeing what they could do, talking with the property owner, talking with the township, and there's gonna be some discussion there, but I think we should still send the letter. And that's about, I guess, all I have for today. Because we got people that are gonna go on tours and stuff here too, so.
Or the
It's raining.
complete storm hits.
Mark, anything?
No.
Charlie?
Thank you, bye.
I just wanted to mention at the AMC, regarding our suit with, Becky Otto. A lot of I wanted the AMC, I've been trying to urge the AMC to fund the legal expenses for Wright and Benton County. And they seem real reluctant to do it, but it's funny because the members that I talked to up there, they said that they thought it would be the right thing. If it would, they just put it and said if they were put in that position, they would want the other counties to come in and because it's something that's going to benefit all of us if we can have the right to have our own private auditors. So, but anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. That's it.
Yeah, something like that probably could have been brought as a motion at the legislative conference we were at here. I can't remember if that was when we got that letter. Maybe, I think we had already known by that time we had an issue, but otherwise doing it on like the floor of the thing, it's pretty hard to, if the board of directors themselves don't vote for it, but, Okay, anything else come before the board? If not, there being no further business, we're adjourned at 11:44.